The moment this guy opened his eyes, the first thing he saw was a pair of tiny, chubby hands. Looking up, he saw the members of the Runcandel clan, and everyone looked incredibly young. He could even see Gilly, his childhood nanny. "Cheer up, young Master Jin." Gilly smiled warmly. Jin looked around and saw countless swords thrust into the ground. The most prominent among them was Barasada, the sword of the first patriarch. This setup was exactly like his childhood selection ceremony. Instinctively, Jin crawled toward Barasada. It didn't take long for him to realize what was going on. It seemed he had traveled back in time, returning as Jin Runcandel at just 1 year old. In his past life, at this exact spot, Jin had also chosen the sword of the clan's founder. However, despite the hopes that he would grow up to be a powerful leader for the clan, Jin turned out to be completely useless. He showed absolutely no talent for swordsmanship and was eventually kicked out of the Runcandel clan. Only when facing death did Jin discover the truth. Someone had cursed him with a 10-star curse called the Bladed Illusion. It was this curse that devoured his talent for swordsmanship and turned him into the family's biggest disappointment. Thinking of this, Jin crawled even faster. Before long, he reached out and touched Barasada, to the immense satisfaction of his entire family. Even though this played out exactly like his past life, this time, he was going to take control of his own destiny. After choosing Barasada, Jin was sent to Storm Castle to begin his new life. 6 years flew by in a flash, and Jin was now 7 years old. According to clan rules, he had to live here until he turned 10, which meant he had 3 more years to go. To be honest, life here was incredibly boring. On top of that, Jin still had to deal with his older brother's childish pranks. It was barely any different from his past life. For instance, today, while he was carefully looking for a book to read, he suddenly heard a maid scream at the top of her lungs. It turned out that when she went in to clean Jin's room, she had found a dead bird, brutally killed and covered in blood. Jin stared at the bird, his face completely expressionless. He knew the only ones in Storm Castle who would pull a stunt like this were his older brothers. Just as he expected, the laughter of Daytona and Haytona soon echoed. They were the 9-year-old twins, who ranked 11th and 12th in the Runcandel family. They were actually disappointed that a maid had found the bird first, instead of their little brother. "What's the matter? Do you like the present your big brothers got you? Are you moved to tears yet?" Jin kept his eyes locked on the bird, but his mind drifted back to his past life. Word had it that not long after Jin was banished, these two became infamous murderers who treated human lives like dirt. Seeing how they were only 9 years old and already treating an innocent bird so brutally just to pick a fight with him, Jin didn't find it surprising at all that they eventually turned into murderers. "Hey, don't tell me you're actually gonna cry. That would be so ugly," Haytona mocked. But Jin's only response was dead silence. "Hey, are you even listening to us? Or are you looking down on us just because destiny chose you to be the patriarch?" Jin remained silent. His reaction made the two 9-year-olds completely lose their patience. They decided to stop using words and get physical. But as Haytona lunged forward to throw a punch, his wrist was caught and locked tight by his brother, who was 2 years younger. "You guys are way too loud. Shut up already." Haytona was stunned by the cold, effortless expression on his younger brother's face. But the real shock came next when Jin landed a devastating punch right to his face. A single punch wasn't nearly enough. After holding back his anger since his past life, Jin's fury finally exploded. Using the twins as punching bags, Jin unleashed a relentless barrage of blows on them. Once they were flat on the floor, groaning in pain, he left them with a chilling warning. "It would be best if you guys never show your faces in front of me again. Young master, what on earth happened here?" A guardian knight named Khan suddenly burst into the room. Jin instantly withdrew the lingering energy in his hands. Khan stared at the unconscious twins sprawled on the floor, their clothes disheveled and their faces swollen and bruised. Jin, on the other hand, stood there looking perfectly clean and neat, as if he hadn't been involved at all. "They suddenly started fighting each other," Jin replied. Of course, Khan didn't buy a single word of it. "Excuse me?" the knight asked. "Didn't you hear me?" They suddenly attacked each other and knocked themselves out. But at this point, the truth didn't even matter anymore. The moment he looked at the cold, unfeeling face of the 7-year-old child, Khan realized that even the youngest master of the Runcandel family was just as ruthless as the rest of them. He nodded in understanding and picked up the twins, intending to carry them to the doctor. But Jin stopped him. "No need for that, Khan. My brothers need to go somewhere else. Follow me." Khan hesitated, but not daring to disobey his young master's orders, he carried the twins outside, along with Jin. Outside the storm castle, the rain was pouring down heavily. Jin ordered Khan to dump Daytona and Haytona under a massive tree, and then build a small grave for the little bird right in front of their eyes. Seeing this, Khan looked incredibly uneasy. Young Master Jin, do you really want to abandon them here? The storm is only getting worse. Jin's expression didn't waver for a second. He coldly declared that his older brothers needed this punishment to finally realize the gravity of what they had done. Knowing he couldn't change the boy's mind, Khan had no choice but to follow Jin back inside the storm castle. But just moments ago, he had clearly felt a surge of powerful energy radiating from Jin, and Khan was absolutely certain it wasn't aura. Could it be mana? Khan thought to himself. If that was the case, this was no longer a simple sibling squabble. I have to report this to the Patriarch immediately. Right after that, Khan ordered his subordinates to bring him a horse. Despite the torrential rain, it seemed he was heading straight back to the Runcandel estate. Truth be told, this was exactly what Jin expected. He knew very well that Khan wasn't just a guardian knight protecting the children at the storm castle. He was also their supervisor. In Khan's eyes, Jin's energy looked exactly like magic, which meant there was no way he would let this slide. But in reality, it was spiritual energy, the ultimate proof of the contract between Jin and Solderet. Thanks to that power, he knew the contract remained valid even in this current life. What is more, the curse immunity Solderet granted him under their contract had freed him from the dreaded illusion sword curse. In short, the useless trash of the Runcandel clan was no more. In this life, he was going to make damn sure his destiny turned out completely different. And if that was the case, the very first thing he needed to do was meet his father. Not long after, Khan met with the patriarch of the Runcandel family and reported the entire incident, along with his nagging suspicions. The patriarch fell silent for a few seconds to think, before ordering Khan to assemble the knights. He wanted to go see his youngest son in person. It did not take long for the older Runcandel children, who served as the vanguard, to assemble. There were 7 of them in total, bringing 200 knights under their command. Then let us head to the storm castle, the Runcandel patriarch announced grandly. What made this so serious was that the patriarch's words were actually an emergency mobilization order. Because of this, his older children were all filled with mixed emotions. Do you know anything about this, Brother Diffus? I just asked Sister Luna, but I bet even she does not have a clue. What a drag. I was in the middle of fighting wizards and got called back for this, Mary Runcandel complained. She was the 7th child of the Runcandel family. The Tona twins are leaving the storm castle next year. Maybe father is heading there for that, or maybe he wants to meet our youngest brother, Diffus calmly replied. He was the 4th child in the family. The youngest? Oh, right. During his first birthday selection ceremony, that kid chose the sword of our family's founder. How on earth did I forget that? But would father really come all this way just for that? Well, who knows what is going through his head anyway. They kept whispering back and forth until Luna Runcandel, the eldest of the family, signaled them both to shut up. Mary did not dare say another word, but she kept staring at her father's back, unable to stop wondering. She could not comprehend why he would go all the way to the storm castle just to meet Jin. Was that little kid really that extraordinary? As for the patriarch's sudden visit, Jin was not surprised in the slightest. So even as Gilly, filled with a mix of shock and excitement, adjusted his clothes, Jin remained completely composed. Jin knew very well that Khan was a simple-minded man, so he probably would not explicitly tell the patriarch that Jin had used magic. He would just report exactly what he saw. And that was precisely what would spark a massive question mark, forcing the patriarch to come here in person to investigate what kind of power his youngest son was wielding beyond swordsmanship and aura, and also to see whether that power, or Jin himself, could become a valuable asset for the future of the clan. Just as Gilly finished getting Jin ready, the patriarch arrived. The sheer presence of the army of knights he brought with him was absolutely terrifying. Yet, the very first thing the patriarch did was not meet his youngest son, but instead, he ordered the twins, Daytona and Haytona, to be brought before him. Daytona, Haytona, I heard you boys picked a fight with Jin. Tell me, what is your offense? Normally, these 2 boys were incredibly arrogant, but standing before their father, they could not help but break into a cold sweat. Even so, they stubbornly insisted they did absolutely nothing wrong, claiming that Jin was the one who attacked and injured them first. They desperately emphasized that his power was freakish, arguing it was not aura, but felt exactly like magic. Both of them knew full well that within the Runcandel family, using magic was strictly taboo, which was why they were trying so hard to exploit this. That is right, father. If Jin is using magic, we have to interrogate him right away before he finds a way to cover it up. Standing nearby, Mary and Defus could only shake their heads and sigh in utter disappointment. They clearly knew the twins all too well. Look at how sly and wicked he is. The two of them are practically fighting over who gets to accuse him first, but their father suddenly shuts them down completely. Enough. Listen to me very carefully. If you two keep acting like this, you won't survive in the Runcandel clan. The twins look completely stunned when they realize their father isn't taking their side, but he has no intention of listening to their excuses anyway. After all, his main reason for returning today is to see his youngest son. Right after that, the patriarch orders his subordinates to bring Jin out. As Jin enters the main hall, he sees the Tona twins gritting their teeth as they walk away. This doesn't surprise him at all. From his past life, Jin already knew that his father, Jin Runcandel, was the absolute strongest, but also the most cold-hearted. He is known as the Genesis Knight, the pinnacle of a demigod. But before receiving all those grand titles, he was once just an ordinary human. However, once he achieved that title, Chiron slowly lost all human emotion, turning into a man who cared only about glory and the future of his clan. That is why, to him, someone with absolutely no talent for swordsmanship like Jin in his past life was nothing but worthless trash. The twins are probably deeply shocked by their father's coldness, but that is nothing compared to what Jin had to endure in his past life. Except this time, things are different. In this life, no one will ever look down on him again, not even Jin Runcandel. In the main hall, countless eyes are waiting for Jin. He may look like a 7-year-old child, but his soul belongs to a man nearly 30. Naturally, a situation like this doesn't scare him at all. Jin opens the door to the main hall, walking forward with calm, steady steps before kneeling in front of his father. I greet the patriarch. This time, Chiron is the one taken aback when he hears his youngest son address him as patriarch instead of father. My siblings, along with many guardians and over 100 clan members, are all gathered here. Because of that, I assumed you came today for official clan business. So, I thought calling you patriarch would be more appropriate, Jin explains. Hearing this answer from the mouth of a 7-year-old child leaves everyone in the room utterly stunned. Chiron is actually quite pleased, though he shows absolutely no expression on the outside. But I came here for a different reason today, so you may call me father. Now, I will ask you the same question I asked your brothers. Where do you think you went wrong? Jin clenches his hands into fists. Then, in front of over 200 people in the hall, he confidently declares that he only did it for revenge. Watching this incredible performance, Mary can't help but smirk. She thinks her youngest brother is actually pretty badass. Father, as Runcandels, we return kindness with kindness and grudges with vengeance, Jin says, and his answer leaves Chiron silent for about 5 seconds. After that, he orders everyone to leave the room, keeping only his youngest son behind. The knights exchange skeptical glances, silently wondering if the youngest master has already passed the patriarch's test. No one dares to guess Chiron's thoughts, but they all have to admit that the way Jin just stood up to his father was incredibly impressive. Once only the two of them are left in the hall, Chiron speaks up. I sent everyone away because I have a personal question for you. The Tona twins told me that you possess an unusual power. Our Runcandel clan strictly forbids the use of magic, because once you touch it, you can never reach the peak of swordsmanship. So, what power did you use? Chiron doesn't hesitate to threaten Jin, making it clear that if he really dabbled in magic, there would be consequences. But Jin knows he will be fine. In fact, once his father learns about this power, there is no way he can just turn a blind eye to it. And so, right in front of Chiron, Jin reveals the power Solderet bestowed upon him through their contract. To be honest, father, I don't even know what it is. I'm not sure if it's magic or aura. If you don't mind, could you help me identify this power? Chiron stares at the surge of power manifesting in his son's palm, his eyes widening in disbelief, because he instantly recognizes it as the power belonging to the founder of the Runcandel clan. Watching the shadow power flowing from his youngest son, combined with the fact that he chose the sword Barasada when he was only 1 year old, Jin Runcandel cannot help but wonder. Does this really mean this child is destined to become the master of the clan? Seeing Chiron lost in thought, Jin gently calls out, Father, your power belongs to the shadow god, Solderet, Chiron replies. Although he knew his power came from Solderet, this is the first time Jin has ever heard that the entity also bears the title of the shadow god. According to his father, many years ago, Solderet signed a contract with the founder of the Runcandel clan, Lord Temar, and stood by their side ever since. But because Temar passed away shortly after, Solderet never appeared in Runcandel again. Being from a later generation, Chiron doesn't know the reason why either. But he can feel that Solderet is now trying to connect with the Runcandel clan once again. And this time, it is through Jin. "Father, I'm curious about something," Jin asks shyly. "Is that God stronger than you?" Chiron hesitates for a moment, then admits that he doesn't know, because you've never fought a god. Hearing that answer, a wry smile crept onto Jin's face. Never fought a god? That had to be the most arrogant thing he'd ever heard. But then, out of nowhere, Chiron suddenly reached out and patted Jin's head, leaving him completely baffled. "My son, that is a very good question. Thanks to your innocent little question, I've just found a great topic to talk about. Coming to see you today was definitely the right call." Chiron then turned the tables, asking Jin how he planned on using Solderet's shadow energy. Having already lived a full lifetime once before, Jin naturally knew exactly how to answer this wisely. So, he claimed he wanted to use this power for the sake of the clan. He figured his father would be thrilled with an answer like that. But Chiron suddenly burst into laughter. "Haha, what a ridiculous lie. You beat your older brothers to a pulp and threw them into a raging storm, and now you claim you're using this power for the family? Come on, tell me the truth." Just as expected, Chiron wasn't going to let him off that easily. Clenching his fists in nervousness, Jin steeled himself and declared, "I want to use this power for myself." His face was innocent yet dead serious, and his voice carried a sharp edge. Chiron scrutinized his son with those hawk-like eyes for what felt like an eternity before finally speaking. "All right, I actually like that answer. From this day on, I'm going to keep a very close eye on you." With that, Chiron turned and walked out. Only when he was absolutely sure he was the only one left in the grand hall did Jin finally let out a massive sigh of relief. Standing before his father was incredibly nerve-wracking, but he had successfully cleared the first hurdle. Not only did he get permission to use his shadow energy however he pleased, but he had also made his father place massive expectations on him. This was far beyond what Jin could have ever dreamed of, especially since in his past life, Chiron hadn't given him a second glance after realizing he had zero talent for swordsmanship. As night fell, the rain poured even harder. Before the knights departed, Mary lingered behind to hand Jin a small package, calling it her special gift to him. "Hey kiddo, cook this up, chew it well, and get strong as fast as you can. Got it?" Mary left him with that advice and a mischievous smirk before heading out with the rest of the knights. Back inside the storm castle, he and Gilly opened the box Mary had left him. To their absolute shock, a glowing red phoenix heart lay resting inside. Jin couldn't believe his eyes. Handing a phoenix heart to a 7-year-old kid was the kind of absolute madness only Mary could pull off. Mary Runcandel, Jin's 7th sibling, was a 6-star knight widely known as the Wind Fury. But she also had another nickname, one that only a select few dared to whisper: the Crazy Chick of the Southern Territory. The reason behind this battle-crazed sister's gift was crystal clear. She wanted him to grow strong quickly so he could be a worthy opponent for her. And if he consumed this at such a young age, he wouldn't just gain absolute immunity to fire, but it would also serve as an elixir that would constantly boost his strength as he grew up. Plus, this thing was actually incredibly useful since a 6-star magician needed it to safely summon a phoenix. Jin was still planning on secretly practicing magic, and he fully intended to summon a phoenix in this lifetime. Not long after, Gilly brought in a piping hot bowl of soup brewed from the phoenix heart. Although she had panicked at first, after calming down, Gilly realized that Lady Mary had actually given the young master an incredible treasure. Jin was just about to dig into his dinner when the hungry, desperate stares of the Tona twins made him lose his appetite. "Brothers, if you have something to say, just spit it out." Daytona and Haytona looked totally embarrassed, but they figured throwing away their pride was a small price to pay for a taste of phoenix heart. So, they started buttering him up, acting as if they hadn't just tormented a poor bird earlier. "Well, it's nothing major, but that meal looks a bit too big for you to finish all by yourself, don't you think?" "Yeah, we saw Gilly carrying up that massive bowl. Do you guys want some?" It wasn't hard for Jin to see right through them. In fact, it was like they were just waiting for him to say the word, immediately nodding their heads like crazy. "You can have some, but only if you do something for me." And just like that, Jin had the two of them out in the dark, digging a trench not far from the storm castle. The two of them muttered curses with every scoop of dirt. Why? Why the hell are we doing this? Exactly, there's literally nothing out here. Why are we even digging? What if someone catches us? What are you whining about? If we get caught, our little brother is the one getting punished, not us. Good point. Let's just do what he says so we can get that phoenix heart soup. But seriously, don't you think he's been acting a bit creepy lately? Despite all their whining, neither of them stopped digging. All for the sake of getting a single bite of that phoenix heart. Little did they know, the spot they were so diligently digging up was right outside a hidden chamber. Inside, the body of a mysterious man was being preserved with utmost care. It wasn't until midnight that the twins finally stumbled back, completely covered in dirt. Just one look was enough to tell they were completely exhausted, running on fumes, and the only thing they wanted right now was that soup. Jin had already finished eating and saved some for his two older brothers. The catch? He left them exactly one single spoonful each. Haytona and Daytona stared at each other, their tempers instantly flaring up. Hey, little bro, just one spoonful? Isn't that a bit too little? I said I would give you some, but I never promised who. And so, I kept my word, didn't I? So, enjoy your meal, Jin replied with a completely straight face. The two were steaming with rage, yet they still had to say thank you for those two measly spoonfuls of soup. As for Jin, he had gotten exactly what he wanted, basically tricking them into doing hard labor for free. The rain was still pouring hard. Jin threw on his coat and headed over to the tunnel his brothers had just finished digging. It seemed the phoenix heart soup was a powerful motivator. He had expected them to do a sloppy job, but they actually did surprisingly well. The cave entrance was now right in front of him. At this thickness, even a simple one-star magic spell would be enough to blow it wide open. Jin looked left and right to make sure no one was watching. He used to feel so helpless, watching his mana overflow day by day without being able to do a single thing with it. But today, he finally had the chance to let a little bit of it loose. Jin's surging mana instantly shattered the cave entrance. In front of him stood a massive gate, the entrance to the Runcandel clan's secret vault. In his past life, he never had the chance to step foot inside, so standing before this gate now, Jin could not help but feel a little nervous. Opening the vault required a passcode. Recalling his memories from his past life, Jin took a deep breath and spoke. The child of Runcandel has come to control Murakan. With a loud rumble, the massive gate creaked and slowly swung open right before his eyes. The Runcandel secret vault was where the clan stored the secret manuals of every family they had defeated over thousands of years. The interior was massive, and normally, only the clan's vanguard, which included the adult Runcandel children with proven swordsmanship, were allowed to enter. In his past life, Jin never had that luxury, but one of his older brothers had bragged about this place, sharing quite a few details because he assumed Jin would never be able to get inside anyway. Yet now, that very information had become the key that allowed him to sneak in, even though he was still underage. Once inside, the first thing that caught Jin's eye was a mysterious man sealed inside a giant glass container. As he drew closer, he could see tiny black scales covering the man's face. This made Jin wonder if he was even human, and why something like this was kept in the Runcandel secret vault. But then, Jin suddenly recalled the passcode to enter this room. The child of Runcandel has come to control Murakan. A sudden realization flashed in his mind. Don't tell me, is this the Black Dragon Murakan? Rumor had it that the Black Dragon Murakan was defeated by the first patriarch of the Runcandel clan and fell into a deep sleep. But Jin had never believed those rumors were actually true. After staring at the man for a long time, he decided this wasn't the time to worry about him and went back to his main goal, finding the secret manuals. Jin had no idea that the exact moment he turned around, the Black Dragon Murakan's fingers gave a slight twitch. He finally reached the archive filled with secret manuals from all sorts of families. First, he looked for the Ken clan, since they were also a lineage of swordsmen. But after reading for a bit, Jin realized this was way too advanced compared to standard 3-star magic theory. He wanted to take it with him to study later, but that would easily get him caught. So, Jin pulled out a blank notebook he had prepared beforehand. He decided he would copy down a portion of the manual every time he visited. Over the next few days, Jin continued to slip back and forth between the storm castle and the secret vault. Then one day, while he was copying a manual, he suddenly heard footsteps approaching from behind. Jin jumped to his feet, panic surging through him. He immediately thought someone had caught him sneaking in and out of the vault. Just as he cracked the door open to peek outside and check, a pair of glowing eyes and a massive, towering figure appeared in the gap, scaring him half to death. "Hey kid, who the hell are you?" Jin was so terrified he literally forgot to breathe. The Black Dragon, Murakan, had actually awakened. In his past life, He had never heard anything about Murakhan waking up like this. He had absolutely no idea how to react to this. Despite his sheer terror, Jin forced himself to stay calm. Since Murakhan was the guardian dragon of the Runcandel clan, Jin figured he might let him off the hook if he showed respect and just acted like an innocent child. A child of Runcandel greets the clan's guardian, Jin said, his voice trembling slightly. Instead of a warm welcome, he heard Murakhan loudly grinding his teeth. You dare call me a guardian? You just called me your clan's guardian dragon. How dare you treat me like some low-level guardian? You damn Runcandel brat. How dare you talk to me like that? I can't even blow off steam on a little kid like you. But you are seriously driving me crazy. Murakhan's booming voice nearly shattered Jin's eardrums. It seemed treating the legendary black dragon like some common gatekeeper was deeply offensive to him. After shouting and cursing for a while, Murakhan got so tired he slumped down, huffing and puffing in pure frustration. How incredibly annoying. Seriously, it has been so long since I smelled anything this sweet. And yet, the only thing I find here is a mere brat? With that, Murakhan suddenly leaned in so close that Jin didn't even dare to breathe. You. Why do you have the scent of shadow energy? Even though I have been asleep for 1,000 years, I still remember this scent perfectly. This unique shadow energy should only belong to a contractor like Temar. The Temar he just mentioned was the legendary ancestor who founded Jin's clan. Hearing Murakhan's words suddenly made everything click for the young boy. Could the real reason this beast woke up be because of the shadow energy radiating from him? Of course, there was no way Murakhan would ever suspect a little kid like Jin could have formed a contract with Solderet. So, he began using his razor-sharp dragon nose to sniff all around the room, desperate to find the true source of that shadow energy. Jin was incredibly tense. He wasn't sure if he should take a gamble, especially since he had no idea how Murakhan felt about Solderet's power. But after a moment of hesitation, Jin decided to bet it all. He spoke up, Lord Murakhan, is this what you are looking for? My father told me this power comes from the god of shadows, Solderet. Murakhan froze as a sphere of raw power materialized in Jin's palm. Then, he began to tremble. Solderet. Are you joking with me? No way. Are you actually serious? Is the 1,000-year covenant really tied to this tiny kid? Both Jin and Murakhan fell into a deep silence. After what felt like an eternity, the dragon finally broke the silence. Hey kid. Yes sir, Jin replied, trying to be as polite as possible. You see, I actually made a promise to Solderet, and it looks like you and I will have to work together to fulfill it. Murakhan mentioned he would explain the details later. He had just woken up from a 1,000-year slumber, and his brain was still completely fried. Besides, he figured Jin was way too young to understand the whole story anyway. Still, he felt it was only right to properly introduce himself to Solderet's new contractor. With that, Murakhan slowly stood up, and his massive body began to transform. I am Murakhan, the representative of Solderet, his friend, and the last descendant of the original shadow creature. According to our 1,000-year pact, I will accompany you from this moment on. Suddenly, Murakhan's true form revealed itself right in front of Jin. The young boy trembled slightly with emotion. Just moments ago, Jin was terrified that Murakhan and Solderet might be bitter enemies. If that were the case, the dragon would have destroyed him in an instant. But no, he was Solderet's friend, not his enemy. It turned out he had taken a massive gamble, and it paid off beautifully. Tell me your name, contractor of Solderet. Jin Runcandel, Jin replied, a wave of pure satisfaction washing over his face. I am the 13th and youngest child of the Runcandel clan. It is a pleasure to be working with you. The black dragon Murakhan was a legendary creature. In fact, Mount Murakhan, the sacred land of howling winds, was named after this very beast. He had ruled over that land since ancient times. But 1,000 years ago, Murakhan was defeated in an epic duel against Temar Runcandel. History records that after the Storm Plaza was destroyed, Murakhan fell into hibernation. But after meeting Murakhan, Jin realized that the historical records weren't entirely accurate. It seemed that contractors of the gods, like Temar and himself, were destined to partner with a dragon. Even though there were still many mysteries left to uncover, the fate that brought him together with the black dragon Murakhan was undoubtedly a blessing. The next day, Jin returned to the secret chamber, bringing a box of food for the dragon. Since they would be spending a lot of time together from now on, Jin began to ask about the things he was curious about. His first question was about the legendary battle between Murakhan and his ancestor, Temar, all those years ago. But because so much time had passed, and his long slumber had left him completely dazed, Murakhan couldn't remember a single thing. After several awkward moments like this, Jin could only be certain of one thing. This legendary beast was absolutely obsessed with the strawberry pies he brought. On the other hand, Murakhan also became curious about why Jin visited the secret chamber every single day to copy secret martial arts manuals. He asked, "I assume you understand a bit of these, right?" Jin replied, "Only about 30%. I don't understand the rest at all." Jin sighed heavily, but Murakhan tried to comfort him. "Don't lose hope just yet. For a kid your age, understanding 30% is already a massive achievement. Other brats wouldn't even manage that because they are incredibly lazy." But those words didn't make Jin feel any better. That was because Murakhan was only comparing him to ordinary children, whereas Jin belonged to a family that literally ruled over half the continent. He had 12 older siblings, not to mention his powerful parents and the clan elders. If he wanted to surpass them, he had to push himself way harder. Suddenly, Jin asked, "Murakhan, if it was the founder of our clan, how much of these books would he have understood at my age?" He wanted to know how he measured up against the man regarded as the strongest human in history. And Murakhan's response took him completely by surprise. "Temar, I don't think that guy could even comprehend a single line of these books at your age." But theory isn't everything, because Murakhan remembered that Temar rarely read any books. Yet he was still an incredibly formidable fighter. He then bluntly stated that while Jin shared the same potential as Temar, he still wasn't as naturally gifted as his ancestor. Jin had allowed his hopes to rise, but hearing those harsh words brought him right back down to earth. Jin starts feeling down. "Does that mean I'll never be as great as our family's founder?" Murakhan stares at him for a moment before reaching out to pat Jin on the head. "No, you're Solderet's contractee, just like Temar, and you're smart enough to read those secret tomes. You're still way too young, so don't rush into things. Just keep training hard, and you'll eventually become as strong as Temar. Heck, you might even surpass him." Murakhan's words aren't just empty comfort, he completely means it. After all, Solderet, the god of shadows who granted Jin his power, is also known as the Infinite. His power has no bounds, and because of that, anyone who contracts with Solderet has limitless potential. Of course, in Murakhan's eyes, Jin is still just a kid, so it's only natural for him to occasionally feel discouraged on his journey. So, he decides to teach Jin a new trick to cheer him up how to release the shadow energy dwelling inside him. Murakhan explains, "Every living thing that can manipulate shadow energy must learn to control it, but it's incredibly dangerous without proper guidance. That's why Jin absolutely must take his training seriously." Jin, being a good listener, asks, "So, Lord Murakhan, what should I do first?" "You? First, you need to learn how to release your mana." "Why's that?" Jin wonders. He thought Solderet's shadow power had absolutely nothing to do with magic, yet Murakhan is telling him the very first step is to release his mana. Besides, he had already done this countless times in his past life. Releasing shadow energy is all about unlocking and moving your mana around. You have to master both of these skills. Starting now, you'll need to practice this for 2 to 3 years. Jin frowns slightly. 2 to 3 years? For someone who is desperate to grow strong as fast as possible, that is way too long. Meanwhile, Murakhan keeps rambling on. "You don't even know the basics, so I can't go around teaching you advanced stuff. In short, the next thing you need to learn is how to unlock your mana." But right as he says this, a ball of mana appears in the palm of Jin's hand, while his face remains completely calm. "It's no big deal. Like this, right? Now, can you teach me the advanced stuff?" Murakhan is absolutely flabbergasted. He leans in close to inspect the mana ball, repeatedly asking Jin how on earth he managed to do it. Of course, Jin can't just tell him that he regressed and that this is a skill he already unlocked in his past life. So, he just gives a half-hearted answer to brush it off. Consequently, in Murakhan's eyes, Jin has officially become a genius among geniuses. Because of this, he decides to demonstrate what releasing shadow energy actually looks like. Jin successfully baited Murakhan into teaching him how to master shadow energy, so he's absolutely thrilled. Even though he was asleep for 1,000 years, it seems Murakhan's power hasn't diminished in the slightest. Shadow energy, as the name suggests, originates from darkness, and all darkness in this world is born from Solderet. In other words, Solderet is the master of all darkness in existence. And right now, Jin is the only one who has a contract with him, which means, in a way, he is also the master of all darkness in this world. As he speaks, Murakhan unleashes his own massive shadow energy. Though overwhelming, the sensation gets Jin incredibly excited. As time passes, while Jin is busy learning to master Solderet's power, His older siblings aren't just sitting idle either. For instance, his eldest sister, Luna, is currently on a mission to clear out monsters from a vast territory. According to a report from her knight, Luna's squad has 5 more regions to clear before the mission is complete. 4 months should be enough. Luna estimates in her head, telling her knights to take a break. Then, she remembers something and asks her subordinate, "By the way, what do 9-year-old kids usually like?" Half a year after the fateful day Jin met Murakan, the Tona twins are finally old enough to leave Storm Castle. Having escaped Jin's clutches, they look incredibly relieved. And with those two gone, things are much less of an eyesore for him. Soon after, Gilly and the other servants host a party for Jin's 9th birthday. Just as they are about to cut the cake, Khan rushes in to announce that Lady Luna has arrived for a visit. Luna showing up to celebrate Jin's 9th birthday catches him completely off guard. After all, everyone knows how busy the eldest child of the Runcandel family, who is also a 9-star knight, really is. Luna's nickname is the White Whale, likely because of her platinum blonde hair. Even though she is the strongest among the Runcandel siblings, she has absolutely no interest in becoming the patriarch. Because of this, Luna removed herself from the muddy mess of the succession war early on. In Jin's eyes, his eldest sister is truly a solitary white whale, and because of that, Luna has never really cared for any of her younger siblings. Her relationship with her 12 siblings is best described as total strangers rather than flesh and blood. In his past life, Jin and Luna were no exception. Yet today, on his birthday, that very sister decided to come to Storm Castle without any warning. At first, Jin thought something major had happened to the clan, or that Luna had caught him sneaking into the family's secret chamber. But when the two siblings came face to face, the first thing Luna said was, "You've grown so much, kiddo. If I'd known you were coming, I would have dressed up a bit more," Jin replied. Luna chuckled. "How cute," as she walked over and ruffled Jin's hair. "Do I really need to give warning before visiting my youngest brother?" This gentle gesture and tone were so different from Luna's usual demeanor, leaving Jin completely stunned. His surprised expression caught his sister's eye, making her worry that he wasn't feeling well. Luna asked, "Why do you look so pale? Are you sick?" "Oh no, not at all." Jin quickly shook his head. "Actually, I'm just a bit nervous because this is the first time we've been this close. For some reason, I'm just feeling a little jittery." Now, it was Luna's turn to be taken aback. In the Runcandel family, siblings were expected to be constantly on guard, plotting against, and even trampling over one another. So, it wasn't surprising at all that Jin would think she was there to test him and feel anxious about it. A wave of sadness washed over Luna. She clenched her fists, and only after a long pause did she finally speak. "Right. It seems I wasn't being very considerate. You might still be young, but I forgot that you're also a child of the Runcandel family." With that, Luna suddenly dropped to one knee to meet Jin at eye level, telling him they needed to talk in private. Jin got the message and immediately dismissed the guards, the maids, and even Gilly. Although he had no idea why Luna was acting so out of character, it didn't seem like anything bad. Once the room was empty and only the two of them remained, Luna's expression grew serious. She explained that the last time Chiron Runcandel came to visit his youngest son, Jin's performance had drawn the attention of all his other siblings. That meant in 1 year, when Jin was old enough to leave the Storm Castle, he would also become a target for all his other siblings. "My dear little brother," Luna said, her voice full of emotion, "I hope you won't lose your own happiness by getting dragged into this family feud. I truly hope you won't be hurt by these Runcandel family traditions." Hearing Luna's words, Jin was temporarily at a loss for words. Could the reason she gave up on the patriarch position really be that simple? And if she didn't want him getting caught up in their siblings' rivalry, why had she never warned him even once in his past life? Was it because he wasn't worth talking to back then, or because the others never even saw him as a rival in the first place? But whatever the reason, Jin could feel Luna's absolute sincerity as she knelt before him. Jin gently patted her hand with his other, free hand. "Sister Luna, I deeply appreciate your concern, but I have absolutely no intention of sitting out of this fight. Jin, I'm serious. I'm not saying this because I think you'll have to face off against me. I know, sister, but I've already survived one assassination attempt. That's why there's no way I can stay clear of this mess." In reality, the assassination attempt Jin was referring to was the bladed illusion curse, which had already been broken in his past life. Hearing this, Luna's eyes widened in utter shock before her expression quickly twisted into sheer rage. Jin could literally feel the overwhelming killing intent radiating from his older sister. "Who? Who dared to target your life here in the Storm Castle? Tell me, Jin, who wanted you dead? The Storm Castle was built to protect Runcandel children, keeping them safe from being assassinated too early in the brutal power struggles for the Patriarch's seat. So, hearing her little brother, who had never even set foot outside the Storm Castle, saying he had been targeted for assassination, it was only natural for Luna to be absolutely furious. To be honest, I haven't been able to figure out their identity yet, but I'm really okay, sister. Jin tried to comfort her, adding, besides, not all of my siblings hate me. Aren't you proof of that? Thank you for letting me know how you feel. I'm truly happy from the bottom of my heart. Hearing such mature words from a 9-year-old child only broke Luna's heart even more. She didn't know what else to say, so she simply pulled Jin into a tight embrace and kept stroking his hair. This was the first time Jin realized how warm Luna could be, so he hugged her back tightly, soaking in this rare moment of genuine family affection. Luna smiled and said, "All right, today is a happy day. We shouldn't be talking about such heavy things." Pulling back, Luna reached into her robe and pulled out a small box. She explained that the real reason she came today was to give Jin a gift. Inside the box was a necklace with a blue stone pendant, but it was no ordinary gem. Luna instructed him that whenever he faced a situation he couldn't handle on his own, he just had to break the blue gem, and she would immediately return to his side. "So make sure to keep it with you at all times," Luna said, as she helped him put the necklace on, adding softly, "Happy 9th birthday, my little brother." Afterwards, Gilly brought out a slice of cake, and the two siblings enjoyed it together, chatting just like a normal brother and sister. After a while, Luna reluctantly took her leave. Later that night, Jin headed back to the family's secret chamber. The moment Murakhan saw him, he shrieked, "Why are you so late today? And what on earth is that wrapped around your neck?" "Oh, it is my birthday present," Jin replied. "Whoever gave you that must really adore you." Murakhan pointed at the gem, his hands trembling with excitement. Seeing his strange reaction, Jin pressed him for answers. That was when he learned this blue gem was actually a relic of the Demon King, Orgel. Over 1,000 years ago, countless people risked their lives just to get their hands on one of his relics. This incredible item grants its wearer immunity to magic attacks of 5 stars or lower, boosts their magic power, and even has summoning capabilities. The reason Murakhan knew so much about it was because he had lived during the same era as Orgel. "This must have been given to you by someone with incredibly powerful energy, right?" Murakhan asked. "Yeah, my oldest sister just stopped by. Wait, you could feel her energy from all the way down here?" Jin handed the birthday cake to Murakhan and asked in astonishment. "Exactly, and your sister probably felt my presence too," he replied. His words made Jin extremely anxious. He worried Luna would report this to the family, but Murakhan told him he was worrying over nothing. After all, anyone who would gift you a relic of the Demon King Orgel would never snitch on you and leave you to be torn apart by the family. Jin had to admit that made a lot of sense. Murakhan also added that out of all his siblings, Luna was the one Jin could truly trust. Just as Murakhan said, while she was at Storm Castle, Luna had indeed felt an unprecedented surge of energy. She also suspected her youngest brother was plotting something, but she figured she should just pretend she knew nothing. That day, Luna also made a decision. No matter what Jin did or what he became, in this family war, she would always stand by her youngest brother. Another year flew by. The time at Storm Castle that Jin once thought would be boring had actually given him so much. The recognition and expectations from Khan, the phoenix heart that Mary brought, his close relationship with Luna, and even meeting Murakhan, a warrior of the dragon race. These were things he could not have even dreamed of in his past life. But now, he was preparing to leave Storm Castle and return to the main castle. During his training sessions with Khan, Jin was always diligent and serious. After a few of these sessions, Khan understood why the Patriarch paid the most attention to him out of all 13 children. Even though Khan was supposed to be the evaluator in every session, the look in Jin's eyes made it seem like he was the one evaluating Khan's teaching abilities. And that was why, when today's lesson ended, Khan did something he had never done for any other young master. "Young Master Jin, teaching you has been my greatest honor. You will be leaving Storm Castle soon, but I promise to do my absolute best to teach you until the very last moment." As he said this, Khan bowed deeply with respect. "All right. Then I will be in your care until then." Some more time passed, and tomorrow was finally the day Jin would leave Storm Castle. Today, while Gilly was packing his bags, he sat there playing with a candle flame. Even though he held his finger right over the burning flame, Jin did not feel hot at all. It seemed like Mary's gift was starting to show its effects. He figured he had absorbed about half of the Phoenix Heart's power, and he would fully absorb the rest over the next few years. As she cleaned, Gilly mentioned she would prepare some strawberry pie for Jin's snack. This suddenly reminded him of Murakhan, who was still waiting in the storage room. Even though it was already late at night, Jin made an excuse to go for a short walk and ran straight to him. In fact, Jin had already told Murakhan about leaving Stormcastle earlier. It looked like Murakhan was also eagerly looking forward to this day. "How are you planning to follow me anyway?" Jin asked. At that, Murakhan began to show off like a proud peacock fanning its tail. "Don't make such a big deal out of it. I'm the legendary Black Dragon. Even if I've gotten weaker, something like this is a piece of cake for me. I guarantee I will follow you without anyone noticing." "Wait, you've gotten weaker? Why didn't you tell me something so important?" After spending so much time together, Jin now dared to talk back to Murakhan instead of speaking to him with submissive respect. "You brat. How could I possibly be perfectly fine after sleeping for 1,000 years? Fortunately, Murakhan said his strength could still recover. And as for Jin, he would eventually become even stronger than him since Murakhan was his guardian dragon. "So hurry up and become a powerful magic swordsman like Temar," Murakhan added. Speaking of which, Murakhan had once mentioned that the Runcandels were originally a clan of magic swordsmen, not pure swordsmen like they are now. Jin had also heard Solderet mention this in his past life. Their clan originally started as a family of magic swordsmen, and the first patriarch, Temar Runcandel, was the strongest magic swordsman in history. Nowadays, almost no one knows this truth anymore. Murakhan also said that the reason the Runcandels abandoned magic to pursue the absolute peak of pure swordsmanship was because of an oath made 1,000 years ago. "Well, even if they revere me as the clan's guardian, I'm pretty sure they'll be extremely annoyed if I actually show up," Murakhan sighed. "If this were 1,000 years ago, both you and I would have been worshipped just for bringing the most noble being in the world into existence." Seeing Murakhan ramble on like this, it was obvious that only Jin was worried about them leaving the Stormcastle together. He had even planned to create an illusion, using dragon magic, so that anyone who came by would still see him fast asleep inside that giant glass jar. "What if your illusion gets discovered?" Jin asked. He only wanted to be sure, but his question seemed to have bruised the pride of this overly sensitive dragon. "Hey, I'm the Great Shadow Dragon, you know? A simple illusion is a piece of cake, so stop worrying." However, since Murakhan hadn't fully recovered his strength, even he wasn't sure how long the illusion would last. He just promised to maintain it as long as possible, so that if anyone eventually discovered he was gone from the chamber, they wouldn't suspect Jin had anything to do with it. Hearing Murakhan say that, Jin finally felt a bit more at ease. The main business was taken care of. So, he pulled out a box of strawberry pies, Murakhan's absolute favorite, along with a bottle of strawberry wine he had brewed himself. Murakhan's eyes lit up instantly. "What did you bring me, kid? Ah, raising you was definitely worth it." Early the next morning, Gilly carefully bundled Jin up in a coat before leading him to the castle gates. Over the past few years, Gilly had watched how hard Jin trained here, but at the main castle, things would be far more brutal and chaotic, so she couldn't help but feel anxious. "Gilly, don't worry, I'll do my absolute best at the main castle," Jin reassured her. "Yes, young master, I will also dedicate my entire life to serving you." Just as they finished speaking, the escort group arrived. Guardian Knights, Jerome and Holtz, were tasked with safely delivering Jin to the main castle, the Garden of Swords. And so, on October 30th, 1790, Jin finally left the Stormcastle for the main territory of the Runcandel clan, officially stepping into this bloody family civil war. Not long after the carriage departed, a heavy blizzard began to fall. Gilly noted that the roads would likely be blocked by snow very soon, so they had to stop at a nearby village and wait it out. If the snow got too deep, the teleportation gates wouldn't work. Suddenly, the carriage jolted violently. Jerome and Holtz yelled outside that they were being ambushed, urging them to stay inside the carriage. Gilly immediately pulled Jin into a tight embrace, reassuring him, "Young master, don't worry. Everything will be fine. Jerome and Holtz are 7-star knights, and you have me as well." Based on Gilly's observations, there were about 20 enemies outside, likely mages and warriors. There were probably archers among them too, but none of them seemed to have a power level exceeding 7 stars. But when Jin looked out the carriage window and saw both knights entirely focused on the fight, his expression instantly darkened. "Gilly, we need to get out of here right now." Gilly didn't quite grasp Jin's urgency, but he had already noticed something deeply wrong. No matter the circumstances, a guardian of the Runcandel clan must never neglect the protection of a Runcandel descendant. So, regardless of how many enemies there were, at least one of the two knights should have stayed by Jin's side. Instead, both of them had rushed off to join the battle. This meant one of them had betrayed them. They were imposters, or quite possibly, neither of them was on their side. There must be weapons hidden in this carriage. We have to abandon the carriage, Gilly. Seeing Jin's dead serious expression, Gilly didn't dare hesitate. Usually, she was just a gentle nanny, but she was actually a warrior. In this situation, Gilly had to risk her life to protect the heir. Two Wolverine-like claws slid out from her sleeves, and the gentle look on Gilly's face vanished, replaced by an intense resolve. I will protect you with my life, as a member of the Runcandel clan. Forgive me if I overstep, young master. With that, Gilly shredded the carriage roof with her claws, grabbed Jin, and leapt out. They sprinted through the heavy blizzard. But after a while, Jin told her he wanted to go back to the ambush site to investigate, because those so-called enemies might actually be his allies. If they had really come to assassinate him, they would have made their move the moment the two of them left the carriage. But right now, the area was eerily quiet. Gilly nodded in understanding and quickly escorted him back. There, a one-eyed man was busy barking orders. Find Jin Runcandel, quickly. Third squad, block the left flank. As they drew closer, both Jin and Gilly spotted the devil and black spade crests on their cloaks. It represented the Utah Magic Clan and the Black King mercenaries. Over there, we found Gilly McRolin, and Jin Runcandel is with her. The one-eyed man immediately leaped down from above, landing right in front of them. He was Mirka, the vice-captain of the Black King mercenaries, who had received orders from the Runcandel clan to rescue the young master. As for the two calling themselves Jerome and Holtz, their fake identities were now completely exposed. After all, if they really were 7-star knights of the Runcandel clan, there was no way they would be struggling so badly against these people. Who the hell are you guys? What are you after? Gilly shouted. That guy Jerome just burst out laughing. What a stupid question. Who in their right mind would waste time talking to the dogs of the Runcandel clan? Even though Mirka and his men could easily handle the situation, their client, Jin, was right there. His word was the only one that truly mattered. Jin showed absolutely no mercy. He ordered Gilly to kill one of them to clear some space, chop off the other one's arms, and bring him forward. It was like a battle switch had been flipped inside Gilly. She lunged at Jerome like a harbinger of death, taking him down with just 2 swift strikes. The other guy, Holtz, went pale with fear when he saw that a Runcandel nanny was far stronger than any regular warrior. Before he could even react, Gilly ruthlessly sliced off both his arms without a shred of mercy. Losing both arms, Holtz lost his balance and instantly collapsed backward into the snow. Gilly grabbed him by the hair and dragged him over to Jin. Your master seems to have severely underestimated his opponents. To even be a servant in the Runcandel clan, you have to be at least a 7-star knight, Jin sneered. So, if you want to try assassinating a Runcandel descendant next time, you had better be at least an 8-star knight. Cut the crap. This is just the beginning. The end of your precious Runcandel clan is near. Holtz shrieked in pure rage. Ha, I would actually love to see that. I do not care much for the so-called Runcandel Empire anyway. I am only interested in the Jin Runcandel Empire. As he said those words, his eyes turned incredibly cold and vicious, sending a shiver right down Mirka's spine. But Holtz seemed completely unafraid of death, spitting back defiantly, "You bastard, bow down before the Zipfels." The name Zipfel was all too familiar to Jin. They were the legendary mage clan ruling the other half of the world. While the Runcandel clan was famous for their supreme swordsmanship, the Zipfel clan was known for reaching the absolute pinnacle of magic. 1,000 years ago, after Temar Runcandel passed away, the Zipfels forced a humiliating treaty upon the Runcandels, demanding they banish all magic from their clan. And just like that, magic in Runcandel was sealed away forever. Because of this, the Zipfel clan became the Runcandels' sworn enemy for 1,000 years, and the feeling was entirely mutual. No wonder Jin had been wondering who would dare act so recklessly against him. It turned out they were fanatics of the Zipfel clan. In that case, interrogating him would be utterly pointless. Jin simply ordered Gilly to dump him somewhere and let him fend for himself. Naturally, seeing the Runcandels as their sworn enemies, the Zipfels had always plotted acts of terror against them. However, this incident probably was not orchestrated by the Zipfel clan itself, but was rather the work of their overzealous followers acting on their own. Still, Jin found it strange. No matter how well these rats disguised themselves, there was no way they could easily fool a 7-star knight like Gilly. So, he suspected that someone else must have pulled some strings. Gilly finished the job and returned quickly. Only then did Jin turn his attention back to Mirka. This time, his successful escape was thanks to Mirka and his men drawing the attention of the two imposters away from him. So, Jin promised that once they returned to the Runcandel castle, he would report their achievements so they could be properly rewarded. All right, now help me set up the teleportation gate. Yes, I will do my absolute best, Mirka replied, his voice trembling slightly. He truly could not believe that everything that had just unfolded was orchestrated by a mere 10-year-old child. Jin was far too confident and mature for his age. Moreover, even after surviving such a crazy ordeal, he remained perfectly calm, as if nothing had happened. Mirka subconsciously recalled Jin's words about building his own Jin Runcandel empire. He could not help but shudder, realizing those were not just the empty boasts of a child, but that he was actually seriously working toward it. Well, it was their family business, anyway. Mirka could only sigh. He then warned his subordinates that until the teleportation gate was fully set up, they had to be extremely careful with every single move they made and not do anything stupid. What, Captain, why are you being so unreasonable? Since when do we have to worry about stuff like that? The Black King mercenaries were completely baffled. Just shut up and do as I say, Mirka snapped, silently cursing his men for being so short-sighted. They clearly had no idea just how terrifying that 10-year-old child really was. Meanwhile, Gilly had finished tidying up Jin's clothes. With their carriage destroyed, the group had no choice but to walk to the nearest village. A few men expressed concern about Jerome and Holtz, but Jin told them not to worry about them. Whether they are found dead or alive, it will serve as a stark warning to their accomplices. The snow was falling heavier by the minute. Mirka's group estimated it would take about 2 more hours to reach a village, but Jin did not complain one bit. Instead, he noticed Gilly's somber expression and realized he needed to comfort her. Stop beating yourself up over what happened during the escort, Gilly. It was not your fault. Even a 9-star knight like Khan couldn't sense it back at the storm battleground. So, of course, a 7-star warrior like you would find it hard to notice anything unusual. Gilly probably understood this perfectly, yet she couldn't stop blaming herself and kept apologizing to Jin. She is still exactly the same as in her past life. As a nanny of the Runcandel family, Gilly's fate is bound to the child she raises. In Jin's past life, Gilly was also his nanny, and because he was completely talentless back then, she was also looked down upon and humiliated. But Gilly never once resented or looked down on Jin. And then, on the day he was banished from the Runcandel clan, Gilly was kicked out of the castle as well. Yet, all she did was cry and repeat the same words to him over and over. "Young master, I am so sorry for not taking better care of you." Jin could still vividly remember her, bowing her head low and sobbing in the freezing snow. That day, he didn't want to raise his voice at the only person who had always been good to him, but things are completely different in this life, and Gilly needs to strengthen her own resolve. So, even though he tried to gently comfort her, it didn't work. Jin had no choice but to raise his voice to snap Gilly out of it. "Stop blaming yourself like that. This is an order. Gilly, as long as you are my nanny, you are the only guardian knight I will ever need. If you let such trivial matters get to you, how can I trust you to protect me in the future? So, don't make me repeat myself. Is that clear?" Jin's firm and decisive words snapped Gilly back to reality. She quickly composed herself and continued walking forward with him. More than anyone, Gilly knew how much Jin cared for her, and she understood that his harsh words were only for her own good. She wanted so desperately to protect him, which was why she couldn't stop beating herself up. But now that she had cleared her head, Gilly found her resolve again, which brought a wave of relief to Jin. They kept walking for a long time. Eventually, they entered a village. Gilly found an inn and rented a room for Jin to rest, while Jin's mind remained occupied with what had just happened. If Jin's guess was correct, there was a high chance this incident involved that guy, the transformation magician, Bouvard Gaston. Transformation is the specialty of the dragon race, but even dragons cannot pull off a flawless disguise. Bouvard Gaston is the only one capable of achieving a truly perfect transformation. He used that ability to disguise himself, committing countless crimes and throwing the world into chaos. Jin only hoped his theory was wrong. If Bouvard was truly involved, things were about to get a whole lot more complicated. In his past life, when Jin was 20 years old, the special forces of the Vermont Empire finally captured Bouvard. Honestly, if Jin could recruit him as an ally right now, it would be incredibly useful. But Jin had no reason to win over someone who had once pointed a blade at him. So, before he could cause any more trouble, Jin decided he needed to investigate this thoroughly. As he was thinking this, exhaustion suddenly overtook him. By the time Gilly took off her coat and said she would go out to keep watch, she turned around to find Jin already fast asleep. After all, this body belongs to a 10-year-old child, and with everything that happened today, he was completely drained. The next morning, Jin was woken up by the loud meowing of a cat outside his window. He groggily opened his eyes to see a black cat stretching playfully behind the glass. That cheeky look instantly reminded Jin of someone. Previously, Murakhan had promised he would hide and tail him. "You said you'd hide and follow me? So your idea of hiding is turning into a cat like this?" Jin struggled to hold back his laughter, while Murakhan, stuck outside, was absolutely fuming. After having a good laugh, he finally opened the window to let him in. "Don't be mad. I was just surprised, since I never expected you to show up looking like this. I thought you would disguise yourself as one of my servants, like a stableman or something. Hey, if I did that, every single guardian knight in your family would have put their eyes on me," Murakhan grumbled, gritting his teeth as he reverted to his original human form. However, he was clumsy, tripping over a raised floorboard and crashing face first into the windowsill. Hearing the loud crash, a highly alert Gilly immediately burst into the room. The foolish shadow dragon didn't even have time to flee or turn back into a cat, leaving him completely exposed right in front of her. "Who the hell are you, and how dare you stalk my young master?" Gilly's fierce guardian mode instantly switched back on. Gilly aggressively charged forward, pinning Murakhan to the floor, and demanded, "Speak, before I send you to the afterlife." "Gilly, wait, this guy is..." Jin rushed over, but before he could even fabricate a proper cover story, Murakhan suddenly jumped up at the sound of Gilly's name. "Gilly? Is this Gilly? Oh, my little strawberry pie, I've finally met you." As mentioned before, the 1,000-year-old shadow dragon had a surprisingly girly obsession with strawberry pies. So, over the 2 years they had known each other, Jin brought him countless pies and occasionally bragged that they were handmade by his nanny, Gilly. Because of that, Murakhan had been desperately looking forward to meeting her in person. Faced with this absolute mess, Jin could only pinch the bridge of his nose and sigh, "Oh man, things are completely out of hand." Jin gestured toward Murakhan, whose hair was a total mess as he stood there with his arms crossed, wearing an arrogant smirk. "First of all, this is the guardian deity of the Runcandel clan, the Black Dragon, Murakhan." Then he turned and gestured toward Gilly, who was completely flustered. "And this is..." But before Jin could even finish, Murakhan impatiently cut him off. "I know who she is. She is my precious little strawberry pie, right?" Gilly anxiously bowed over and over, repeatedly apologizing. This humble servant of the Runcandel family begs forgiveness for being disrespectful to the guardian deity. "Please forgive me." But he just spread his arms wide, laughed out loud, and said teasingly, "Don't worry, my little strawberry pie. I am more than happy to forgive you." Gilly, completely bewildered, raised her hand and asked, Lord Murakhan, may I ask why I am a strawberry pie?" He proudly replied, "Because you are wonderful, beautiful, and you make the perfect strawberry pies." Gilly suddenly realized something and snapped her head toward Jin. "So, he is the reason you asked for strawberry pies every single day?" Jin looked away and smirked sheepishly. As the bright sunlight gently streamed onto the windowsill, he softly requested, "Could you please sit down for a moment so I can explain?" They sat down properly, while Murakhan lounged lazily on his side, propping his head up with one hand. Gilly gasped, covering her mouth. "There is so much I didn't know about you, young master," Jin said apologetically. "I am sorry for keeping things from you." But she was not upset at all, unlike what he had feared. "No, I have always known that your talent is extraordinary, young master." But as Gilly looked back and forth at the two of them, completely overwhelmed, first there was magic, then being the contractor of Solderet, and now, a dragon. Murakhan smirked, casually summoning a tiny dragon that danced on his fingertips. Suddenly, surrounded by a happy aura, Gilly clenched her fists in sheer excitement. "As your maid, I am just surprised and incredibly happy for you." Then, she turned her full attention to Jin's instructions. "Either way, you are on our side now. They cannot find out that Murakhan has awakened, or about my relationship with him. At least, not for now." "Understood?" Gilly immediately replied, "Yes, young master. I understand." Murakhan rudely popped up in front of her, grinning broadly, as he said, "You have nothing to worry about, strawberry pie. After all, I will always be by his side." She quickly thanked him. Thank you for your kindness, Lord Murakhan. Gilly suddenly remembered the loud crash from earlier when he face-planted into the wall. By the way, about that loud noise right before you transformed. Are you feeling okay? Jin immediately reached over and shoved Murakhan's face. You really should be more careful, Murakhan grumbled. Stop lecturing me, before trying to explain. Glancing at the shattered wooden platform with cracks still visible, Murakhan had to admit the truth. I fell. After saying that, he threw his head back and laughed heartily without a shred of shame. Gilly's face went pale with worry, and she whispered, Young master, are you absolutely sure he is trustworthy? Jin wasn't entirely sure either. I think so. At the Mytel teleportation gate, Murakhan had transformed into a cat, sitting on Jin's shoulder. Meanwhile, Gilly was speaking to Mirka. Great job, Dark King Squad. Mirka's attention, however, was drawn to Murakhan. A cat? Was that here before? She professionally continued. The Runcandel clan will surely reward your hard work handsomely. Standing up straight in front of Gilly, he replied, This mission was a valuable experience for us as well. Mirka looked down at Jin and the black cat on his shoulder, who was looking up with wide, round eyes. I am very excited to see the future of the young master you are caring for. Suddenly, he changed the subject. But, I have a question for you, Gilly. She was taken aback. Yes? Mirka gestured and asked seriously, Why would someone of your exceptional talent choose to abandon the McRollan clan just to become a nanny for a Runcandel boy? Gilly coldly turned away. There is nothing more to discuss. Realizing he had overstepped, he scratched his head awkwardly. I apologize. That was out of line. She gently replied, It's fine. Then, Gilly turned back to the soldiers waiting behind them. Together, they walked inside the building. The gatekeeper welcomed them mechanically. Welcome to the teleportation gate. May I see your papers? Gilly unwrapped her cloth, showing the sword emblem of the Runcandel clan to the gatekeeper of the Hufester Alliance. The gatekeeper instantly recognized it. Ah, you are from the Runcandel family. Gilly quickly wrapped the emblem back up in the cloth. The gatekeeper gestured to lead the way. It is an honor to meet you. Please follow me. We will arrange premium seating for you. With Murakhan sitting quietly on Jin's shoulder, they stepped forward as the staff member added, It will only take an instant once we depart. If you could just wait here for about 2 hours. Have a safe trip. As the two sat down, the cat quickly hopped onto the seat cushion. Gilly suddenly called out to Jin, making him look up in confusion. Meanwhile, Murakhan was fast asleep on Gilly's lap. She frowned with concern. Honestly, as your servant, I am extremely worried. If Murakhan is exposed or anything, we won't be able to handle the fallout. Jin knew immediately that she was referring to his magic. Gilly's voice was filled with anxiety. Of course, no one in the Runcandel family is supposed to do that. Jin smiled reassuringly. Don't worry, I know. I will make sure it stays hidden. Then, the two of them and the cat suddenly flinched and looked back, Jin narrowing his eyes to get a better look. A crest on a green background caught Jin's attention. It was that golden dragon emblem. Veridin, with his snow-white hair, suddenly came into view. He strode in arrogantly, flanked by his hulking bodyguards. Jin watched as Veridin Zipfel slumped onto the chair right in front of them. Jin and Gilly could only stare in silence, while Jin used a book to cover half his face to keep observing. Who are they? So familiar. Resting his chin on his hand, he grumbled in an annoyed voice. I really do not feel like going to Hufester today. His next words made Gilly scowl in irritation, while Jin remained perfectly calm. I never expected to run into some pesky rats here. But Murakhan leaped off the seat. He walked over and sat obediently beneath Veridin's chair, making Veridin exclaim, Wow, your cat is so cute. He smiled brightly and waved at Murakhan. Come here, little guy. Aren't you a good boy? The cat strolled over lazily. Suddenly, Murakhan's attitude turned vicious, clawing violently at Veridin's hand. The guards panicked and cried out, Young master, you filthy beast. Surprisingly, he did not get angry at all. Instead, he gently calmed his two guards who were drawing their swords. Hey, it is fine. It is just an animal. I must have scared it. Besides, drawing a sword in front of a Runcandel won't do any good anyway. Veridin looked over at Jin with curiosity again. He was surprised to see that they did not have a harsh reaction. He thought to himself, I was just curious and wanted to poke them a little, but I never expected them to be this unfazed. I guess the youngest son of the Runcandel family is quite calm. Meanwhile, Murakhan turned around and lazily sprawled across Jin's lap. He stood up, placing a hand on his hip, and introduced himself. I am Veridin Zipfel. I want to apologize for being so rude a moment ago. Jin silently observed Veridin Zipfel. In his memories, Veridin was a towering, grand figure who basked in everyone's praise. A genius magician who was most likely to inherit the Zipfel clan, a role model for young mages who possessed both immense skill and elegance. But right now, he was just a kid, smiling and holding his hand out to Jin. Jin thought, I once believed he would leave me far behind in terms of magic skills. Even though Jin had not taken his hand yet, Veridin's bright smile did not fade. Jin thought to himself, so that is how he was back then. I never expected to meet him when we were the same age. This is actually a pretty neat feeling, isn't it? Jin closed his book, reaching down to stroke the cat instead of returning the handshake. I also wondered what kind of person you were. It is good to know you are not a complete idiot. Veridin awkwardly asked, Is that how you judge me? Though Jin kept a smile on his face, his words were laced with heavy threat. Even if you were just joking, if those guys had drawn their swords, you would have ended up wandering around Hoofester without any bodyguards. And you might have lost a few fingers too. Veridin laughed as he awkwardly waved his right hand, which had been hanging in the air this whole time. Geez, even your jokes are pretty violent. Jin's blue eyes flashed with cold cruelty as he growled. Do you really think I am joking? Veridin felt a shiver but tried to laugh it off. All right, let me give you some advice, he said, trying to ease the tension. If you ever meet another Zipfel or find yourself in a similar situation, do not make a rash decision to cut off their fingers. Otherwise, it will only bring pain to both sides. Jin smirked sarcastically. Good joke, Veridin. His calm, unfazed tone left Veridin completely stunned. My father, Jin Runcandel, and your father, Keliark Zipfel. Do you really think they would interfere in a kid's fight? Veridin's eyes widened in absolute shock. Veridin crossed his arms and burst into laughter. You are totally right. They would probably just settle it with some gold coins or something. Hey, I learned something from you. I will pay back this debt as soon as I can. Jin stared blankly and demanded right away. Do not wait. Pay me back right now. He eagerly leaned in and asked, Of course, what do you need? But Jin's cold request left Veridin completely frozen in place. I would be very grateful if you could just stay quiet until the transfer gate activates and stop disturbing my rest. He gradually became loud even in his silence, constantly squirming and making all kinds of dramatic faces. Jin thought to himself, this guy, he will probably become much stronger in a few years, won't he? Veridin sat right down on the floor, resting his chin on the table as he stared at Jin with sparkling eyes. Jin thought, if not for his clan, I might have actually befriended him. The bodyguard, feeling embarrassed, had to whisper, Young master, your image. But Veridin became thrilled again as he realized, wait, if he is a Runcandel, does that mean there is a chance he will become my lifelong rival? That is so cool. The bodyguard pinched the bridge of his nose and sighed. Young master, please behave. Jin was completely helpless against Veridin's starry-eyed, longing gaze. What a nuisance. His hand is probably all scratched up, yet he is still acting like this. What is wrong with the Zipfel family? They are all completely out of their minds. Just then, an announcement over the speaker cut through the bizarre atmosphere. Thank you for your patient wait. The gate on the ceiling began to light up, with glowing runes. A powerful surge of magic manifested in a diamond shape, followed by a cold announcement. The transfer gate will now temporarily open. You may experience headaches or dizziness as side effects. Therefore, passengers, please remain in your seats and prepare to pass through the gate. As the blue magic gradually enveloped them, Veridin suddenly stood up and yelled out, Jin Runcandel. Even though he was about to vanish, Veridin eagerly shouted, It was great meeting you. Let us meet again next time. Jin coldly rejected him, turning his face away as he said, I have absolutely no desire to see you again. A towering castle and a flag bearing the Runcandel family crest came into view. The carriage rolled steadily along. Gilly stood formally by his side. Just as Jin stepped down from the carriage, the familiar voice of his guide called out to him. A voice rang out to greet them. We have been waiting for you, young master. Petro bowed respectfully. This is my first time welcoming you. I am the second butler, Petro. Standing in neat rows behind him were knights in iron armor. Sharp swords of all shapes and sizes were planted firmly into the ground in the courtyard. Petro continued politely, Your journey here must have been quite difficult. A magnificent, sprawling estate gleamed under the warm sunkers. I sincerely welcome you to the main The gleaming golden swords instantly drew their attention, as Petro introduced the area as the Garden of Swords. Petro explained that the Garden of Swords was a sacred ground where those who dedicated their lives to Runcandel's prosperity earned the ultimate honor of planting their swords. The hilts of every single sword were intricately carved. In other words, this place represented the ultimate dream and honor for every member of the Runcandel family. Together, they walked past the Garden of Swords and headed deeper into the mansion. Jin thought to himself that planting his own sword here before he died had once been his dream too. Memories of his past self, kneeling helplessly and pathetically, flashed through his mind. Back then, he was weak and possessed absolutely no potential. Lacking both leadership and wisdom, how could I have been foolish enough to think that effort alone would change everything? Jin lifted his head high, his clear eyes brimming with hope. This time, in this sacred place, I will live a life that actually matters. The windows and the Runcandel crest stood out sharply in the golden sunlight. When Jin and Gilly arrived, Jin calmly looked up at the figures standing on the grand staircase. Rosa, the Black Panther and matriarch of the Runcandel family, greeted him first. "It has been a long time, my youngest," he calmly replied. "Yes, mother." She was slightly taken aback by his composure. The cat's golden yellow eyes widened in curiosity. Siren narrowed his eyes, staring at Murakan thoughtfully. He asked Jin, "Did you pick up a stray?" Jin reached out to scratch the black cat's chin, making it purr with delight, before politely replying, "I have taken him in, father." Siren was quick to catch the interesting choice of words. "Instead of picked up, you took him in." Rosa looked over in surprise. Siren praised, "It is good that you speak with such dignity." Exactly. When a Runcandel claims something, that is the proper way to put it. Suddenly, Murakan leaped off Jin's shoulder, catching him off guard. Rosa bent down to gently pet the cat. "My son, what is this little guy's name?" Jin gave her the fake name he had made up for Murakan's cat form. "His name is Nabi Runcandel, mother." Rosa was slightly taken aback by the name. But unlike her, the rest of the siblings immediately erupted in outrage. Defus shouted angrily, "What? Father, mother, even if he is just a child, this is unacceptable. How dare he give the Runcandel name to a mere animal?" He turned his anger toward Gilly, snapping, "Gilly, how on earth are you raising the youngest? How dare a mere cat carry our name?" She could only bow her head, apologizing quietly, "I am so sorry." Sensing the tension, Siren intervened, commanding, "Enough." He looked down at the boy and asked, "My youngest, why did you give this cat the Runcandel name?" Jin placed his hand over his heart and stood his ground. "Because that way, I will take full responsibility for him." He calmly explained, "He might be just an animal, but he is the very first life I have taken in. Therefore, I believe his name should carry weight." Siren was intrigued by this unexpected answer. Quite fascinating. "But, my youngest, do you truly understand the sheer weight that the Runcandel name carries?" Jin picked up the cat, cradling it gently but firmly against his chest. His posture and voice radiated unwavering resolve. "I understand perfectly. If anyone insults Nabi, I will be the one to pay the price." Siren gently tapped the pommel of his cane and chuckled, "My youngest, it seems you have quite a talent for making enemies." Siren glanced at the sour expressions on his other children's faces. "Just look at how your siblings are staring at you right now." Despite the glaring eyes, Jin calmly held Murakan and confidently shot back, "Perhaps. But I also have a talent for destroying my enemies, father." Siren let out a satisfied grin, his teeth gleaming. "Mark my words, all of you had better watch your backs if you plan on crossing this cheeky little brother of yours." With those parting words, Siren turned and walked away. 4 years quickly flew by. It was now early summer of 1794. In the middle of the massive estate's courtyard, a voice called out, "Young master." Jin had now grown into a tall, handsome teenager. Jin Runcandel, 14 years old, a 2-star knight, and a low-ranking cadet. Garen walked over to announce, "We will end today's training here, young master." "Great work." Jin looked thoughtful and asked, "Are we only training for the morning?" Garen rested his hands on his hips and smiled. "Doesn't Lady Luna have training plans with you today? You must have forgotten." This was Garen Altamiro, a guardian knight of Runcandel and a low-ranking instructor. Jin reluctantly agreed and placed his wooden sword back on the rack. "Ah, right. I'll head over to grab a bite then." Garen sighed, feeling a bit dejected. "Are you planning to eat with the other cadets again today? Your nanny is going to be disappointed." Jin let out a weary sigh to reassure him. "Don't worry. I just don't feel like having a staring contest with my siblings while trying to eat." Garen obliged. Understood, I will let her know. Meanwhile, the other cadets held their food trays, lining up in an orderly fashion to receive their meals at the counter. Suddenly, someone called out to him, causing Jin to turn around in surprise. Young master, I brought you some food. He politely replied, Thank you, Bellup. He smiled brightly as he handed the food to Jin. It is nothing, young master. This was Bellup Schmitz, a Runcandel cadet guard belonging to the lower class division. Jin kept his eyes glued to the boy next to him, who was stuffing his cheeks and devouring his food. 13-year-old Bellup Schmitz was a commoner. After training, Jin narrowed his eyes, recalling what had happened in his past life when the boy faced being stripped of his cadet status and expelled. He curiously asked, Is it that good? Bellup flinched and replied blankly, Yes, but his cheeks were still bulging from chewing. With his fork still in his mouth, Bellup looked at him with pure adoration, speaking with an eager appetite. Of course, I am always grateful to the Runcandel clan. Thanks to them, I get to eat this incredibly delicious meat. And I am also grateful to you, young master, for always sharing your meat with me. Jin quickly cut off his long-winded speech. All right, that is enough. Stop. He curiously asked Bellup, You said the exact same thing yesterday. Did you memorize that? All the boy could do was scratch his head and smile sheepishly. Jin suddenly gave him a serious warning. Bell, you need to learn to control yourself and act more mature. Honestly, babbling like that makes other people look down on you. He stuttered in response. Is that so? Jin's face grew stern and firm as he held up his spoon like a model. That is right. Straighten your back and have some confidence. Be proud that you are a cadet of the Runcandel Guardian Knights. Bell timidly lowered his head and mumbled. But my grades are terrible. I can't even reach 1-star status. Jin closed his eyes, sighed, and advised him, becoming a cadet of the Runcandel clan was never supposed to be easy. As the food on the tray dwindled, Jin continued to patiently guide him. No matter how low your grades are, you're still far better than any other 13-year-old out there, understand? The boy could only whisper, Yes. He glanced at Bell, who was busy devouring his food, and made a silent assessment. His personality is too naive. It is no exaggeration to say he was targeted by the Heron clan. Jin thought back to his past life. But how did someone so innocent end up being trained to become a bloodthirsty swordmaster? After becoming a loyal dog of the Empire, and walking down the path of a ruthless killer, Jin felt a deep pity for Bellup's tragic fate. When I heard he became an Imperial Guard, I was shocked. And when I heard he committed suicide, my heart ached. If I just leave Bellup be. Jin placed a piece of meat onto his tray, making the boy yell out, Young master. He quickly reassured him, I'm not hungry, you can have it. Bell looked at Jin with eyes sparkling with joy. Young master. Jin smiled as he watched the boy beside him happily wolfing down the food. I must make sure you don't get expelled this time. Jin steeled his resolve. Living a life of misfortune only to die in the end was more than enough. And so, the two boys laughed and chatted as they enjoyed their delicious meal together. Jin went back to change his clothes, counting on his fingers as he walked. Shadow energy release is 2-star, mana is 4-star, and swordsmanship is 2-star. Folding his fingers down until only 2 remained, he was highly satisfied. Things are going quite smoothly. If I keep this up, I can reach 3-star swordsmanship within 2 years. But before that, Luna thrust her sword into the cold tiled floor and announced, My lovely little brother, today's training will be just like yesterday's. The two stood facing each other with their swords resting on the ground. She commanded, However, you'll have to defend yourself differently. Jin politely replied, I understand, big sister. Luna looked at him and reminded him, Brother, use your mind's eye. A strange, dark, blue-black magical aura manifested. Although Jin closed his eyes and complied, he was wary and slightly anxious deep down. Look with my mind's eye. I guess I have to get through a type of training I've never even heard of before, Luna emphasized. See with the eye of your soul. Jin obediently shut his eyes to follow her instructions. She continued, For those who live to hone their blades, possessing the soul's eye is more important than anything else. Luna also stood straight and closed her eyes, while carefully reminding him, Don't open your eyes. Though he stood still and complied, he couldn't help but wonder, the mind's eye is a state only knights above 7-star can reach. So why is she teaching it to someone who is only 2-star like me? Jin kept thinking, not only that, a normal mind's eye is achieved by releasing aura, but since I can't use aura during training, I shouldn't be able to feel it at all. He felt as if he had transformed into a towering swordsman. clad in sturdy iron armor with sword in hand, focusing every ounce of bright energy as it rushed into his sword. But Jin chose to trust her, tightening his grip on the hilt. No, I choose to trust my sister. I'm sure she has a purpose. Focus on the training. I believe that one day, I'll understand this exercise. Time flew by, and the two finally finished their training session. Luna showered him with praise. You did great today too, Jin. You may head back now. He scratched his neck and replied with a bright smile. Thank you, Sister Luna. Recalling the image of him training, she thought in admiration. As expected, I knew he'd do well, but he always exceeds my expectations. He displays a level of focus and memory rarely seen in a two-star knight with this kind of potential. I'm sure you'll figure it out in just a few years, little brother. Luna's expression softened, filled with deep affection. She silently cheered him on, thinking, keep growing, my little brother. Jin returned to the training ground, where the cadets had already gathered and stood in neat lines. They greeted him in unison. Welcome, young master. Belop stood timidly and dejectedly among the cadets. Everyone was on guard. They looked at each other, looking extremely tense. Seeing them like this, Garen put his hands on his hips and laughed out loud. This duel makes up a huge part of your final evaluation. Getting a good score is a shortcut to becoming a guardian knight, so I'm sure you're all incredibly nervous. He turned back to Jin and smiled, saying, Today is an important day for you as well, young master. Jin, who had been watching everyone with his arms crossed, looked over in surprise. Garen explained. Lady Rosa said that if you defeat 10 higher-ranked opponents today, you can join the intermediate training group at the beginning of next year. Jin's reaction was calm as usual. Is that what Mother said? That's great news. Suddenly, he glanced slightly to the side. Seeing the boy trembling like a leaf, holding both shoulders, made Jin worry. Belop is doing it again. He rested his hand on his forehead, sighing in frustration. I'll have to control my strength so he doesn't get expelled, but he really needs to be more confident. By this point, Belop's face was completely pale with fear, his mouth hanging open. Garen's loud voice rang out. Listen up. Today, everyone will duel 3 times, changing partners each time. The 10 best winners will face young Master Jin one-on-one. Everyone shouted in unison, Yes, instructor. Right after that, the chaotic brawls began. 2 cadets clashed swords with absolutely no mercy. One of them got knocked down, hitting the ground hard. Jin watched, silently assessing them. They're not bad. Their time as trainees wasn't wasted. The defeated cadets were already lining up in an orderly fashion. Garen ordered, All right, those who weren't chosen, return to your spots. They immediately replied in unison, Yes, sir. Garen turned back to remind him, Get ready, young master. Jin firmly grabbed his sword and replied in a ready tone, All right. The moment he spoke, he raised his sword and ruthlessly knocked the weapon out of the winner's hand. The sword spun in the air before stabbing into the ground. Jin estimated that he had already defeated 8 people, so he only needed to beat 2 more. He grew cautious, thinking, to do that, the person I need to watch out for is. Garen turned around and shouted loudly, Next up, get ready. A young girl with pink hair stepped forward. Mesa Milcano, a beginner-class guardian knight trainee of Runcandel, walked up confidently and without a shred of fear. Please guide me. Young Master Jin knew exactly who she was. Mesa, a noble who was destined to become a guardian knight once she completed all her trainee stages. Bursting with passion, she raised her sword and took her stance. Today, I will definitely defeat you. He had actually been looking forward to this duel. The match with Mesa was the most important part of this test. Jin offered a polite smile and nodded at her. All right, I'm looking forward to it. Mesa lunged off the ground in a flash. Like a raging storm, she aimed her blade directly at him. But Jin easily blocked the powerful strike. He looked coldly at the 2 clashing blades. Mesa. She's got stronger than before, but not to the point where I can't beat her. Jin swung his sword to the left, carefully thinking as he fought. The real challenge is that I still have to defeat 8 more people after her. If that was the case, he could easily neutralize all her moves without putting in much effort. Their sword paths kept shifting like spiderwebs stretching across the air. Unlike Jin, Mesa was struggling to keep up, her expression growing more panicked by the second. Why is he only using basic attacks when he's shown such advanced techniques before? Both of her hands gripped the sword tightly, trembling slightly as anger welled up inside her. I'm sure he's doing this on purpose, but why? Mesa's eyes widened. No way. The Jin standing before her now looked like a madman, swinging his sword relentlessly with a smug grin. Mesa thought in terror. Is he looking down on me? Believing she still couldn't defeat him today, her fighting spirit flared up again, and she channeled all her strength into her hands to lift her sword. All right. Mesa spun her sword, aiming right for the center of Jin's blade, and screamed with all her might. Bring it on, young master. Bellup and the other cadets, watching from the sidelines, gasped in absolute shock. The more Jin fought, the more fired up he got, effortlessly deflecting every single attack with a smug smirk playing on his lips. Her distinctive pink hair whipped through the air with every movement. I won't be pushed back anymore. This time, I'm definitely going to surpass the young master. Mesa summoned every ounce of her strength, her face tensing up as she leaped high into the air, aiming her sword straight at Jin. The two wooden swords clashed. With just a swift horizontal slash, he snapped her sword in half. The broken blade flew high into the air as the dust slowly settled. Mesa stared blankly at the broken sword in her hand, completely dazed. How is this even possible? Jin's blade was already hovering right in front of her neck. He pointed the sword straight ahead and politely complimented her. Great match, Mesa. Jin raised his own sword, which was now covered in cracks, and examined it. Well, it's useless now anyway. She gasped and followed his gaze. When Mesa noticed the deep cracks on his sword, she was struck with pure shock. I can't believe it. Did he hit the exact same spot on my sword with every single strike? Our stamina and strength are exactly the same, but I lost in precision and pure stubbornness. How is something like that even possible? But she gradually came to accept it. After all, he is a child of the Runcandel family. Mesa called out, "Young master." She made a loud, passionate vow from the bottom of her heart. I will train with everything I have got, and I will definitely defeat you next time. Mesa silently resolved that she could not keep losing like this. As the sky above gradually changed color over time, everything was going exactly according to plan. Yet another student was defeated by Jin in utter shock. For someone like me right now, facing 10 trainees head-on is no easy task. He coldly delivered the finishing blow. By pulling off an incredible victory against me and Mesa, he made them believe they stood no chance in a direct fight. The wooden sword clattered to the ground as the defeated trainee knelt there, completely frozen. He stood tall, looking down. With this one, that makes 10. Thank goodness, everything was going according to plan. Jin wiped the sweat from his brow, catching his breath. Just as he breathed a sigh of relief, Garen spoke up in praise. Well done, young master. He walked over with a broad smile, showering him with endless compliments. With this achievement, you will be able to train under a true run. Jin returned the smile politely. Thank you, Garen. I will be in your care until then. He informed him. It is almost lunchtime, so we should wrap up our morning training. Jin pondered for a moment, then asked, how much time is left? Garen answered honestly, about 10 minutes. Why do you ask? All the surrounding trainees were bruised and battered, their limbs covered in bandages, except for Bellup, who was completely unscathed. He glanced over at them and said, I still have one more person to face. Jin reached out to grab another wooden sword. Everyone wondered, who is it? When he suddenly shouted, Bellup Schmitz. Everyone's eyes widened in shock as they looked at him. Even Bellup himself gasped in utter disbelief. He pointed to himself, stammering, Young master? Me? Jin coldly commanded, Step forward, let's fight. Terrified, Bellup stammered, hesitant to take a single step. But Jin raised his voice, demanding, Bellup. Standing against the sunlight, Jin pointed his sword at him. You cannot survive in Runcandel like this. Using all the authority in his voice, he commanded, Step up, step forward and fight me. I am going to defeat you. Bellup slowly stepped forward. Hesitant, he climbed onto the stage step by step, lifting his wooden sword with a trembling hand. Why did the young master choose me? Is it because I am weak? Is he just using me to assert his authority? With a stern expression, Jin called out, Bellup! Startled by the sound of his name, he replied, Yes, young master. Jin spoke coldly, a hint of sarcasm in his voice. I am quite exhausted after fighting 10 opponents. But you, on the other hand, look perfectly fine. Putting his hands on his hips with confidence, Jin added, But I am still stronger than you, and that is exactly why I want to fight you. Bellup was stunned. What? Confused, he began to ask, What do you mean by that? But before he could finish, Jin swung his sword, his eyes flashing with intensity as he charged right at him. Taken by surprise, but relying on a soldier's pure reflexes, he managed to raise his sword just in time to block the blow. But the sheer force of the impact sent Bellup sliding backward. Shocked, he cried out, Young master, why are you doing this? Before he could even finish his sentence, a flurry of strikes from Jin rained down on him. Strangely enough, Belop managed to block every single one. Jin let out a mocking chuckle. Nice blocks. Belop did not lose focus as he grunted a quick thanks, then swung his sword, forcing Jin to back off. The wooden sword scraped hard against the floor, leaving a deep groove as dust and debris flew everywhere. Bracing for another heavy strike, Belop grit his teeth, his entire body tensing up under the pressure. Jin paused, taking a few steps back with his sword. In a flash, he placed a hand on the floor, lowered his stance, and slid forward like a gust of wind, charging straight at Belop. Unable to react in time, Belop tumbled to the floor before pushing himself back up into a sitting position. Gritting his teeth, tears of sheer frustration welled up in his eyes. Unable to take it anymore, Belop looked up and demanded, "Young master, why are you doing this to me?" Jin replied slowly, his voice firm and unwavering. "Do you honestly think I called you over here just to have a friendly spar? I came here to fight you." Standing tall as he pointed his sword down at Belop, Jin added in a stern tone, "Which means I can also kill you." Tightening his grip on his sword, Jin commanded, "Get up. I am only going to go easy on you once." The crowd began to murmur in shock as the sword in Belop's hand suddenly started to glow. Recognizing it instantly, Mesa screamed, "Is that aura?" The light grew brighter by the second, and Belop's expression turned ice cold. She turned to the swordsmanship instructor, Garen, her voice filled with panic. "Sir, we have to stop this match right now. If this continues, the young master is going to be in serious danger." Jin shot a threatening glare at the soldiers standing outside. "This is an order. Take whatever you see here today, to your graves." Gritting his teeth in reluctant agreement, Garen muttered, "Understood." A flash of pain crossed Belop's eyes. "Is this really what you want?" "You sure are straightforward, young master." "That's right," Jin responded in a freezing tone. "If you know how to use aura, then do not hold back." Gritting his teeth in fury, Belop snapped, "You just made a huge mistake. Young master, if you really wanted to fight me." Belop roared, furiously charging toward Jin to attack. "Then you should have come to fight me first." Frowning in surprise, Jin blocked the incoming blow with his sword, but the blade couldn't withstand the pressure and instantly snapped in two. Gritting his teeth, Jin retreated to dodge the follow-up strike. His eyes widened as he thought to himself, "I had no idea he was this strong." Recalling their past training sessions, Jin knew Belop was strong. Whenever the cadets sparred with each other, he could always read his opponent's skills and tactics, and he even knew how to avoid getting hurt, even when he lost. But Jin never expected him to be able to use aura. While Jin was momentarily dazed, Belop lunged forward, unleashing all his rage in a flurry of rapid slashes. Even though Jin's sword was broken, Belop didn't stop. In a flash, Jin threw a punch right at Belop's sword arm. Gritting his teeth, Belop's arm trembled as he suddenly felt something closing in. The sword slipped from his grip, and instantly, Jin grabbed Belop in a headlock with his bare hands and slammed him to the floor. Belop thrashed around, trying to break free. Deciding that this was enough, Jin slowly loosened his grip. Belop struggled to crawl out of Jin's hold. Frustrated, Belop cried out, "Why did you stop? You said you wanted to fight to the end, so shouldn't you have finished the job?" His voice was filled with resentment. "Do you find it amusing to play with people like this?" Jin replied with a serious look. "Is that the kind of person you think I am? Then why?" Belop demanded. Jin looked at him, his voice heavy with reluctance. "Provoking you like this hurts me too." Jin confessed, "It hurts more than you think." Belop clenched his fists. "What do you even know about me to torture me like this?" Jin slowly leaned down and picked up the sword. "You are right. I do not know who you are." Jin knelt down, his voice dropping low. "But I do know one thing." His eyes grew intense, his voice carrying the weight of a lesson to be engraved in Belop's heart. "Compassion is a luxury you can only afford when you are strong. You are weaker than me, and you are far kinder than me." Jin placed a hand on Belop's shoulder. "I actually like that about you. But if you are that kind-hearted, you will never survive in this living hell." He encouraged him. "So get stronger. Get strong enough to protect that kind heart of yours." The bystanders were deeply moved by his words. A kindness meant for me and for everyone else. Belop burst into tears, and Jin gently comforted him. "I am sorry I had to push you so hard." Right then, the kitchen staff walked in carrying fresh ingredients. The pink-haired guy gasped in surprise. "Oh dear." Flustered, he added, "If your training is still going on, we can come back later." Jin looked at them and replied, No, it is fine. Bring them in. Belop then softly reminded him, Young master, please come collect today's rations. Jin stood up, looking dignified. All right. I will go grab our meals. Deep inside the gloomy forest, Chiron listened quietly as Khan relayed the events. So that is what my youngest son had to say? Khan bowed respectfully. Yes, Patriarch. Chiron burst into laughter. I see. So that is the path he chose. Thinking about how Jin comforted Belop, Chiron sneered. He wants to protect the weak while ruling by force? After a brief moment of silence, he instructed, If that is his choice, let him be. I want to see just how far he can go. Khan, go back and report this to him. Khan immediately obeyed. Yes, my lord. Chiron's eyes gleamed with a dangerous intensity. I will give him his first mission. In January of 1795, 15-year-old Jin was officially recognized as a 3-star knight. During their first break, some cadets returned home while others stayed behind to train on their own and test their progress. Once they advanced to the intermediate level, wooden swords were no longer used for training. Instead, they were replaced by real, customized swords. Many cadets commissioned blacksmiths to forge custom weapons for them, and Jin was also searching the family armory for a sword that suited him. But suddenly, a voice called out. Luna laughed and sighed. Finding a sword that fits you is such a pain. Because she insisted on choosing a sword for him, the entire decision was left in her hands. A month ago, she had practically begged him, Jin, please, let me pick your sword. He had reluctantly agreed, thinking, whatever, she has a better eye for weapons than I do, so she will probably pick something that works. Right after, Luna showed up carrying a massive sword. Jin's eyes widened in utter disbelief. She babbled on and on. This sword is called the Slaughter of Bales. I used it all the time when I was your age. It is a massive, sharp sword. When I was about your age, I thought I would only use things like this. Luna gazed at it affectionately, her voice carrying a hint of nostalgia. I am pretty sure this is the original design of my Crantel. Her eyes sparked with anticipation. So, what do you think of this sword? Do you like it? Jin stood there frozen and stammered. Well, Sister Luna. He forced out the words reluctantly. I am really grateful that you helped me pick a sword, but I do not think this one is quite right for me. She nodded with a hint of regret. I get it. No worries. I was only joking, anyway. Jin's expression darkened. I really do not think she was joking, Jin thought. Luna swung the sword in front of him, clearly having no intention of giving up. But seriously, the Slaughter of Bales is an amazing sword. It might be a little heavy, but honestly, it is not that bad. Realizing her sales pitch was not working, she fell silent for a moment before finally giving up. Fine. I will listen to you. I will pick out another sword for you instead. A massive weight was finally lifted off Jin's shoulders. Luna led him to another room, opening the door as she said, I really put my heart and soul into picking a sword for you, you know. Inside was a massive vault filled with countless swords. Luna had been absolutely determined to find the absolute best match for him, a sword that only he could ever use. She walked over, picked up a sword, and held it up, saying, And here is my choice for you. Jin could only stare in absolute awe. Luna explained that since he had aimed for Barasada from the very start, she figured this would be the perfect sword for him. She drew the blade from its scabbard, the cold metal gleaming. He instantly recognized it. This was the very sword connected to Barasada, the one used by the first patriarch of the family, Bradamante. Jin gently ran his fingers over the blade, while Luna smiled warmly, asking, You like it, don't you? He praised it in pure excitement. Yes, this is easily the most extraordinary weapon out of thousands of legendary swords. Jin held Bradamante in his hands, thinking to himself that this was the exact sword he had sworn to obtain by any means necessary. To think she would actually choose it for him. He reminded himself that both Bradamante and Barasada were highly compatible with shadow energy. If I had picked this sword myself, the others would have definitely protested and forced me to give it up, Jin said with a look of concern. Every single one of my siblings wanted Bradamante. I honestly do not know how I can ever repay you for choosing this for me, sister. Luna agreed. That does sound like trouble. Then, she placed a hand over her heart and looked straight at him. Jin, I take it you still haven't let your guard down around me, have you? Luna pouted. That is actually pretty disappointing. He frantically waved his hands. No, absolutely not. Really, I am being completely sincere. She pointed her finger right in front of Jin's face, playfully setting a condition. Is that so? But my disappointment is very real. So, you better find a way to comfort my poor, broken heart. He stammered. What? Luna urged him. Close your eyes, Jin. We are going to start training now. He agreed. All right. Under the clear blue sky, her voice was as gentle as drifting clouds. Do you know what I am talking about? Jin answered confidently. Of course I do, Sister Luna. She nodded in satisfaction. Good. But I still have one more thing to teach you today. Luna gently patted him on the shoulder, taking him by surprise. What? He asked, as she softly explained. Your siblings might always try to tear each other down, but they are also the ones who love you unconditionally. Luna's eyes shone with deep sincerity as she emphasized, keep this close to your heart. Then, she grabbed Jin's shoulders, shaking him playfully as she raised her voice, and stop being so gloomy. He jumped, stammering, I get it. I get it. I am sorry. She spoke calmly, though her heart seemed heavy with emotion. I have lived a lonely life in this family since before you were even born. I have had more than enough of it. So please understand that I do not want you to ever go through a life like that. Jin gently held his sore arm, lowering his voice. I know, sister. Luna walked away gracefully, her head held high as if nothing had happened, giving a gentle yet firm command. All right, let us start training now. Jin, feel it with your entire heart. In the luxurious room, Jin called out, Murakhan. He held up his newly acquired sword, showing it off. What do you think of this? Without even bothering to look back, he stayed lying down reading his book. Put it back. Kid, you cannot control shadow energy yet, so you will not be able to use it. Jin froze. What? Murakhan advised in a low, serious tone. If you want to use Bradamante, you need to be at least a 3-star in shadow energy. But you are only a 2-star kid right now, are you not? His voice grew stern. You cannot force the sword to awaken its true form. Jin frowned, sheathing the sword. I will reach 3 stars soon. He said with absolute determination. I will be able to use it in no time. Right then, Murakhan slammed his book shut. He was absolutely furious now. How arrogant. Listen up and mark my words carefully. Kid! Murakhan's face darkened as he grabbed Jin's head and pushed it down mercilessly, gritting out every single word. Barasada and Bradamante are not weapons you can just swing around carelessly. You need to be at least a 3-star in shadow energy, and that is the absolute bare minimum. He pushed down harder, growling, stick to regular swords and wait until you reach 5-star shadow energy first. Do you understand me? Jin remained stubborn, brushing Murakhan's hand off. With a rebellious look in his eyes, he replied, But you know I am not an impatient person. So basically, all I have to do is reach 5-star shadow energy this year, right? Murakhan was so angry that a vein popped on his forehead. He grabbed Jin's head once more, trying to snap him out of his delusion. Even if you were to rank first in a shadow energy competition, mastering that level of power is still completely ridiculous. I am telling you this for your own good. Breathing heavily, Murakhan lowered his voice, speaking with heavy sarcasm. Because that idea is so absurd, even a dog would laugh in your face. So if you understand me, stop talking absolute nonsense, Jin. Reaching out slowly to grab the comic book. Suddenly, he snatches it right out of his hand, demanding in a challenging voice. Say that again. What did you just say? Murakhan screams, his face turning pale. Damn it, put it down. I said put it down right now. Right then, a woman appears, making them both freeze in their tracks. Young Master Jin turns around. Gilly? What's wrong? Did something happen? She walks in, looking awkward. Instructor Garen is looking for you, young master. He was supposed to come here himself, but he said he needs to look at the map while discussing the campaign briefing with you, so he needs you to go to him. Murakhan takes the chance to grab the comic book back, hugging it to his chest like a treasure. My precious comic book. Jin looks at him suspiciously. A campaign? Gilly adds. Instructor Garen has assigned you your first mission. Once your break is over, you will have to set out immediately. He scratches his head and nods slightly. Is that so? Jin puts his hands in his pockets and says calmly, I guess it's about time, huh? I'm a 3-star swordsman now, but setting off right after a break is indeed a bit strange. She sighs, her voice filled with worry. I'm guessing it's because it's a very difficult mission. Normally, intermediate missions or higher are only assigned to swordsmen of your rank. But he remains indifferent. I'm sure they recognize my progress, which is why they gave me this mission. Jin turns his head and casually waves goodbye. I'll go check it out. Gilly, you stay here and wait with Murakhan. She replies politely, Yes, young master, please go ahead. The black door creaks open, and he steps into the briefing room, scanning the area before speaking. Garen, I heard I've been assigned a mission. He replies, Greetings, young master. Aside from you, 10 other beginner cadets have also been assigned to this mission. Getting straight to the point, Garen spreads a map across the table. Everyone will be split into 2 teams for this mission. This is a search mission in the vicinity of the southern border of the Zon Kingdom. Someone asks, is that kingdom near the Beastman's territory? I believe it is also close to the area marked as the lair of the White Wolf tribe. Jin glances over the map, his heart sinking. Beginner cadets shouldn't be sent to this area. He thinks to himself, if this is supposed to be a first mission, it's pretty difficult. The time frame given is also much shorter than usual. An assistant steps forward and hands him a stack of documents. Young master, here is the map and the detailed information about the members. The others whisper among themselves as they read. Are our team members all cadets with pre-intermediate results? Even Bellup is here. Members with inconsistent results? Doubt starts to creep into Jin's mind. Could someone have intentionally suggested this? The image of his father flashes in his mind. Suggested? If the fight I had with Bellup was reported to father, then this mission must be a test for me, right? His gaze grows cold. Fine then, father. I will definitely show you the strength of my convictions. 3 days later, at the southern border, the objective of this mission is to locate the heir of a wealthy clan in the Zon Kingdom. First, we will set up a base camp at the center of the southern border once we arrive. Once preparations are complete, each team will begin their search and share information by sending someone back to the camp at designated times of the day. Everyone will address me as commander instead of young master. The injured must stay back and rest at the camp if needed. The report of a team member ends. Let's just hope the scout leader is still alive. Garen reports, Commander, if we encounter the beastmen of the Watertail tribe. Jin is slightly puzzled. The Watertail tribe? He doesn't pay much attention, since they're just a gentle tribe that avoids predators, and we likely won't enter the territory of the nearby White Wolf tribe anyway. Jin orders, all right, Bellup, since the snow will slow you down, head out to the camp 2 hours early. Return to Area 13. He acknowledges the order. Understood, Commander. Jin continues his instructions. The rest of you, search Area 13. They reply in unison. Yes, Commander. Although his commands are firm, a sense of unease begins to rise in Jin's heart. I have a bad feeling about this. Father must have ordered this mission directly, yet everything is going way too smoothly. He tries to calm himself down. Or did I misunderstand his intention to test me with this mission? Suddenly, a beastman from the Watertail tribe speaks up. Kind Watertails see that you look pretty poor, holding out a skewer of grilled fish. Hey, if you want to eat, go ahead. It's on us. Jin politely declines. Thanks, I'll pay you back later. He picks up the map and contemplates. Beyond Area 13 lies the beastmen's territory. The beginner cadets would be no match for them. Jin tells himself he doesn't need to push things just to get results. I'll spend the next 3 days confirming the searched areas. Right then, rapid footsteps echo, and someone calls out to the young master. Bellup arrives, gasping for breath. Young Master Jin. He turns around. What is it? His frantic shout makes the entire team freeze in their tracks. Team 2 was ambushed. Jin immediately orders, all forces, prepare to move. Bellup, what's the situation? He reports urgently, Team 2 scattered to evade the enemy, but one survivor made it back to the base camp to report. Jin presses. Were they ambushed by beastmen? Bellup quickly denies. No, they were ambushed by humans. It's confirmed to be 3 of them. Attacking Runcandels with only 3 people? His eyes grow skeptical. There's no way. I'm certain they have backup. We've got company. Jin immediately gave his orders, telling Eddington and David to head back to camp and keep watch. He warned them that engaging the enemy was strictly off limits if they were spotted. Your priority is to report back as soon as possible. The squad obeyed instantly, replying, Yes, sir. His voice sounded heavy, echoing through the snowy woods. There are way too many enemies out here, Jin thought to himself as he ran. But what are they actually after? Why target Squad 2 instead of Squad 1, where I am? He pondered. I don't know who these attackers are, but our people have already been ambushed. I will make sure they pay dearly for messing with the Runcandel family. Suddenly, Sierra noticed something off. Young Master, there is blood. Bellup's face grew pale with fear. No way, Mesa. Is Squad 2 completely wiped out? Jin quickly cut him off, keeping his voice calm and reassuring. The blood is still fresh. Jin knelt down, wiping a smear of blood onto his fingertips and rubbing them together. There are no signs of a struggle or torn flesh. He concluded, A fight broke out here, and Squad 2 retreated. Looking at these footprints, they were ambushed by only one person. Sierra made a sudden discovery and called out, "Young master, we found some discarded bandages. They seem to belong to Hoofester." Jin looked pleased. "Excellent. Where did you find them?" Sierra gave a short reply. "To the west." Immediately, a theory flashed through his mind. So, while they were treating their wounded after being chased, they were ambushed by a lone attacker, forcing them to move west. Without wasting a second, Jin stood up and gave his orders. "Sierra, regroup with Eddington and back them up. Let's move, Bellop." Bellop nodded in response. "Right behind you, young master." With that, the two of them set off. They tracked the trail until Bellop called out in a hushed whisper. "It's Squad 2, young master," Jin replied cautiously. "I know." But his eyes never wavered from the crowd ahead, noting that Mesa was nowhere to be seen. Not only that, but the ambushers have gained another member. Jin's voice dropped. Bellop closed his eyes for a brief moment. "In 2 seconds, take out the guy on the left." Bellop drew his sword, ready for action. "Understood." Gripping Bradamante, Jin recalled Murakan's teachings on the nature of shadow energy. In an instant, a blast of dark power erupted from his sword. Enveloped in shadow energy, the blade's sharpness and sheer destructive power amplified. He lunged straight at his target with swift, brutal precision. The ancient runes of the sword echoed in his mind, sharpening his absolute resolve. Matter corrosion. Scott stood there, dumbfounded as an enemy dropped dead right in front of him. Meanwhile, Bellop charged straight toward Hades. He froze in his tracks. What the hell? A sudden instinct of pure danger forced Hades to look up. Right then, Jin descended like a dark shadow. Bradamante slid from its scabbard, unleashed by its master. Bellop lunged right in front of Hades, forcing him to raise his sword in a desperate block. But right behind him, Jin unleashed a vicious slash. Hades collapsed, screaming in agony. Jin turned to check on his teammates. "Is everyone okay?" Kiko gasped. "Young master." Clutching his bleeding arm, he struggled to stand. "We're fine, but they took Mesa." Hanging his head in shame, Kiko's voice grew heavy. "We are so sorry, young master," Jin replied flatly. "Don't worry about it. Let's get everyone patched up first." Hades lay thrashing frantically on the ground, and Jin approached him with a cold, contemptuous glare. "What? Are you seriously asking me for mercy? From where I stand, you just look like some of Zipfel's brainless apostles." Bradamante gleamed coldly in his hand. "I'm going to give you 2 options." Jin's expression turned ice cold. "First, you get a quick, painless death after telling me your faction, your goal, and your base. Or second, you keep your mouth shut and die in agonizing pain like the rest of your friends." His voice was firm. "I always keep my word. My name is Jin Runcandel. I swear on my family's laws and my honor." Hades gritted his teeth, consumed by a raw terror that completely shattered his tough exterior. "Okay, fine. Just spare my family," he confessed. "I belong to a revolutionary group called Kinzalo." Intrigued, Jin echoed, "Kinzalo?" It rang a bell. He realized the man was referring to the notorious terrorist organization that was active around the time of his death. Memories rushed back of a world plunged into absolute chaos when they assassinated King Jean and slaughtered innocent civilians. They claimed to be revolutionaries, but the revolution Kinzalo dreamed of was making their own king the absolute ruler of the entire world. Snapping back to reality, Jin interrogated Hades. "So you planned on inciting a riot in the John Kingdom by killing Runcandel cadets, is that it?" Terrified, he frantically stammered. I'm just a low-ranking pawn. They don't tell me things like that. I don't know where our headquarters is, but the branch I work for is right at the entrance of the Beastman's territory. There are about 24-star warriors and magicians there." Jin growled. "Last question. Why did you capture Mesa?" Hades replied, his voice shaking. "It's for propaganda. To spread word of our revolution. We were ordered to capture the female cadets alive." Scott gritted his teeth, cursing under his breath. "You sick, dirty bastards." Hades whimpered. That's really all I know." Jin raised his sword. "I'll keep my word." With a single swift strike, he put an end to Hades' life. He turned to Bellop. "How long has Mesa been captured?" "It hasn't been an hour yet," Bellop replied. Jin mapped it out. "Then they must still be near the entrance to the Beastmen's territory. Get yourselves patched up first, then head back to base to call for backup." Hearing this, Kiko asked in a panic, "Wait, are you going alone, young master?" Kiko grew even more anxious. The ambushers were all 4-star combatants, 20 of them in total. Scott chimed in, "He's right. Going alone is suicide. Young master, he pleaded, trying to convince him, we're soldiers. It's our job to put our lives on the line. So please. Jin cut him off. Just like you said, Scott, but with one of our own captured, there's no way a son of Runcandel can just sit idly by. Jin's voice was completely resolute. Besides, I'm a lot stronger than you think, so obey my orders. I will treat any further pushback as insubordination. And one more thing, Bellop, Jin instructed. Since the rest of Group 2 is injured, you are now their strongest combatant. You need to keep your head straight. You understand what I'm asking of you, right? Bellop nodded firmly. I'll keep that in mind, young master. With that, Jin bolted into the night. Picturing Mesa bound and helpless, he silently pleaded, please, don't let me be too late. Moving through the freezing night, Jin assessed the situation. Our enemies have 24-star combatants. He let out a heavy, exhausted sigh. My swordsmanship is only at 3-star. My magic is 4-star. And my shadow energy release is at 3-star. Trudging through the biting wind with a heavy heart, Jin knew his growth rate was impressive, but there was no way he could take on 20 of them at once in his current condition. The top priority right now is rescuing Mesa. He then began weighing his magical options. I have to avoid direct combat as much as possible, and focus entirely on finding Mesa. Jin cast a detection spell, thin threads of light weaving outward from his hand like a spiderweb, scanning the terrain, he thought. And if I combine wind pursuit with this, his hands moved rapidly, weaving intricate magic circles as he directed the green beams of light toward the grasslands. Jin immediately followed the magic's guidance. They couldn't have gone too far, but midway, he was suddenly ambushed. Beams of light sliced through the air right at Jin, followed by a sudden shout. It's the Runcandel kid! Instantly, a group of hostile figures burst from the bushes. Jin's hand glowed once more as surges of green light erupted, blasting straight into the crowd. They were completely stunned. Magic? Since when does a Runcandel use magic? Shouts echoed through the chaos. Damn it, just kill him already. Jin instantly unsheathed Bradamante to fight back. With one clean slash, blood splattered. The leader, wielding a flaming staff, roared from behind. Get out of the way! Instantly, he unleashed a torrent of fierce, raging flames that surged straight toward Jin. In the blink of an eye, a torrent of fire wrapped completely around Jin's arm. Mus burst out laughing triumphantly, convinced that Jin was trapped and his arm was entirely consumed by the flames. But Jin was completely unscathed. He immediately used his other hand to land a devastating blow on his opponent. Not only did Jin suppress the fire around his arm, but he also weaponized it into a fierce counterattack. He stood tall and imposing, one hand tightly gripping his sword, while the other held the raging flames. The hooded man gasped in sheer terror at the sight. Even so, he was determined to defeat the boy, refusing to give up even though his fire magic was completely useless. Switching his tactics instantly, he turned his fire into ice and roared, "Then I will rip you to shreds with ice." Even as a sharp shard of ice pierced his chest, Jin's gaze remained bone-chillingly cold. He charged straight through the ice barrier as if he felt absolutely nothing. The sight left the hooded man utterly horrified. "No way," he shrieked, utterly stunned, as he stammered, "How? How is this possible?" Through the dead of night, an angry, desperate scream echoed, "My magic!" Jin walked forward, taking slow steps as he cursed those Kinzello bastards. Looking at the scene, he thought to himself, it seems they aren't even trying to hide their tracks, are they? They really underestimated their opponent. Reaching his hand down to inspect the ground, Jin deduced that they must have met someone here and traveled by carriage. Kinzello is a highly organized group with a strict hierarchy, so they probably distribute their spoils based on rank. He picked up a map and continued to analyze his options. Since the lower ranks wouldn't dare touch the spoils reserved for their superiors, this is my only chance to rescue Mesa safely. Jin opened the map. I am currently near the Beastmen territory, so their hideout must be close by. With that in mind, he conjured his fire magic. I will create a distraction and find an opening to rescue Mesa. In an instant, fireballs shot out like cannonballs, unleashing a roaring blaze that quickly engulfed the forest. Jin then conjured swirling blue flames, figuring that this would force them to run outside to put out the fire. As the flames erupted, chaos broke out among the nearby guards. Fire! What the hell is going on? Panicked shouts filled the air. Where did this fire come from? Put it out now. Water! Bring some water, quick! Jin watched the chaos unfold from the shadows, his eyes filled with disdain. Can't you guys even put out a simple fire properly? A massive giant yelled in panic. Mages! Use your water and ice magic, now. Jin watched him, wondering, is that guy their leader? As the inferno grew wilder, the panic intensified. Boss, the fire won't go out, the giant roared. Do you really think a fire would just start on its own in this weather? Someone did this. Find them. He suddenly sensed someone behind him. Meanwhile, the frantic shouting continued. Move it! Get the mages over here, fast! Amidst the thick, billowing smoke, Jin smiled in satisfaction as he held a key. Perfect. I found the way in. Slipping through the cracked door, Jin looked around and shivered. It's freezing in here. Where could Mesa be? Suddenly, he spotted a trapdoor, and his eyes narrowed in suspicion. A basement? Looking down, he caught sight of long hair swaying faintly in the shadows. Jin immediately called out, Mesa! She turned around, her voice trembling. Young master, why are you here? It's too dangerous. Jin reassured her, his voice firm and steady. Don't worry about me. Can you walk? Bound tightly, she struggled to answer. Yes, but I don't think I can run. Jin swiftly slashed her ropes. It's okay, I'll help you up. Suddenly, the ground shook violently. Jin froze. What was that noise? Mesa gasped in panic. Young master. She looked him dead in the eye, her voice unusually grave. Can you promise me one thing? Jin frowned. Don't say another word, Mesa. But she insisted, her voice filled with desperate resolve. If things go south, please just leave me behind. You are far too important, young master. I cannot let anything happen to you. Ignoring her pleas, Jin helped her up. Let's just move. It's too dangerous to stay. But as they emerged from the basement, they found the area completely buried in rubble and lifeless bodies. Jin immediately realized this was the work of a beastman from a warrior tribe. Both of them stood in tense silence, taking in the scene. From the shadows, a massive figure with snowy white fur slowly emerged. It was a member of the White Wolf tribe. Mesa urgently cried, Young master, I'll buy us some time, so please run. But before she could even finish her sentence, she was knocked unconscious. Kojito roared in fury. You useless pieces of trash. If you can't even put out a simple fire, you don't deserve to live. He glared at Jin and demanded, You're the little brat who started all of this, aren't you? Unfazed, Jin replied with absolute confidence. That's right. I am the son of Jin Runcandel. With a gaze as sharp as a blade, he commanded, State your name, beastman. Kojito bared his fangs in a sadistic grin. Runcandel? So, you're one of those Runcandel brats? A few days before the mission in the kingdom of Zhan began, at the Runcandel estate, Jin was training tirelessly with his sword, Bradamante. Wisps of dark energy crackled along the blade. Suddenly, Murakhan kicked him hard right in the ribs. You idiot, he roared. Are you trying to get yourself killed? I told you, you're not ready yet. If you release your sword's power, you'll only end up intoxicated by the shadow energy, Murakhan warned. Grabbing Jin by his collar, he threatened, If you don't want to die from an overdose of shadow energy, stop trying to awaken your sword. Got it? Jin helplessly replied, I get it. Back in reality, Kojito was bursting with excitement. A Runcandel, yes. Today is the day I claim my most valuable prize, he roared, baring his drool-dripping fangs. I am Kojito Chuka, a warrior of the Chuka clan from the White Wolf tribe. We are famous for being bloodthirsty and war-loving. Even the weakest adult in the White Wolf tribe is at least a 6-star warrior. It was common knowledge that the White Wolves absolutely despised the Runcandel clan. And the reason was because the first patriarch of the Runcandel family had invited their god, the great white wolf Javier, only to betray and slaughter him. Jin furrowed his brow, quickly realizing there was no way he could run from this monster. Kojito stomped forward like a raging storm, oozing bloodlust. I will sacrifice you to Javier to put his soul at peace. Jin gripped his sword tightly as the beast roared, Now make your choice. Fight me in an honorable duel, or get ripped to shreds running like a coward. Jin's eyes turned ice cold, showing no fear. I'll fight you. Kojito lunged forward, ecstatic. Good, at least you're a Runcandel with some pride. Swinging his massive axe, he roared like thunder. Then let's make this a real fight. The giant axe came crashing down with enough devastating force to shatter the solid ground. The two clashed without a shred of mercy. Jin gripped his sword, ready to strike. But he immediately realized Kojito's power was completely overwhelming, leaving him wide-eyed. The beast lunged as fast as lightning. Jin braced himself to block the heavy blow, his chest tight with panic. He really is a White Wolf warrior, I had to use every ounce of my strength just to block that one strike. Before Jin could even catch his breath, Kojito rushed him again. Gritting his teeth, Jin tried to steady his mind, but I still have a chance to win this. I have a few trump cards he doesn't know about. My pendant, magic, and shadow energy. In his hand, the blue gem of his pendant glowed faintly, but wasting the pendant here isn't worth it. If I can't even survive a threat like this, then I don't deserve to become truly strong. Raising a barrier to defend, he quickly ran the calculations. Magic won't work either. A 4-star spell won't do a thing against a white wolf warrior. And if anyone from the clan is sent to investigate Kinzalo, they'll immediately pick up traces of magic. If that happens, the fact that I broke our clan's taboo will be exposed. His blade flashed in the dark. That leaves me with only one choice. Jin strained to block another devastating axe strike, muttering under his breath. Shadow energy. Kojito relentlessly swung his axe, each slash tearing through the air. Jin launched a counterattack, his power exploding as he roared. Release my blade. Planting one hand on the ground to keep his balance, Jin gasped for air, sweat pouring down his face. The beast sneered. Nice sword, you Runcandel brat, but it's nothing compared to your clan's legendary shadow blade. Once again, the two blurred together, sparks flying wildly. Aiming his axe straight for Jin's head, Kojito growled, "Still, you're a lot stronger than you look." A split second later, Kojito was suddenly struck. Jin gritted his teeth, commanding himself, "Remember the feeling of releasing the sword that night." The beast bellowed, "It's over, you Runcandel brat. I will sacrifice both you and your sword to Javier." Jin looked up, his eyes freezing cold. "I have to remember it right now." In a flash, Jin lunged straight at him, catching Kojito completely off guard. He could only gasp, "What?" In the dead of night, a sword cloaked in dark energy slashed down. Moonlit blue threads filled Kojito's vision, sending him into a panic. I can't see anything." A blinding flash of white light ripped through the darkness, piercing through his body without mercy. Jin's hand remained tightly gripped around his sword, which was still overflowing with shadow energy. I never understood why my clan was so famous for their shadow blades either. Until recently. Feeling the slash that nearly cut him in half, the beast stammered, What are you?" Jin's eyes remained completely expressionless. That was a good fight. In the pitch-black night, Jin limped forward, dragging his exhausted body as weak groans escaped his lips. Suddenly, his eyes glazed over. He let out a primal roar and lunged blindly forward. From the darkness, malicious whispers echoed, clawing at his mind. "You worthless piece of trash. How can someone so weak accomplish anything? What an idiot. He doesn't even understand the mess he's in. You are a disgrace to the family, born from the same mother, yet you're our biggest embarrassment." Suddenly, Murakhan materialized in front of him, his voice harsh. "What did I tell you, kid? You stubborn brat, didn't I warn you that trying to release your sword without enough shadow energy would come with a heavy price? Are you trying to bite the dust from shadow energy intoxication? Get up! If you lose your mind now, you're a goner." Jin trembled, forcing himself up as Murakhan's words echoed in his head. "Don't you already know what you need to do?" Jin shut his eyes tight, forcing his body into a meditative state. "Release. Shadow energy," he muttered. Coughing up a mouthful of blood, he grimaced. "My consciousness is being overwhelmed by the surrounding shadow energy. I can't even release it properly. I can't let it consume me. I have to try again." Jin forced himself to take a deep breath, slowing his racing heart and calming his mind. He tried once, then twice, until finally, his breathing became steady again. He sighed, his chest feeling lighter. Did I actually survive it? The pain is gone, but that only makes me worry. My body feels completely normal, yet I can feel this overwhelming shadow energy surging inside me. It shouldn't affect my movement, so I need to focus on saving Mesa. Suddenly, Jin heard a strange noise nearby and called out, "Who's there?" A timid young man trembled in fear and cried out, "Please, please don't kill me." Jin was slightly taken aback and asked, "Are you one of those Kinzalo guys? So there are survivors after all?" Sember quickly flinched and denied it. "No, I'm not one of them." He hurriedly threw his hands up in surrender, adding, "I'm Sember Bill from the Bill family in the Zhan Kingdom." Instantly recognizing him, Jin softened his tone and introduced himself. "So, it's you?" "I'm Jin Runcandel. I was sent to rescue you." Feeling a massive weight lift off his shoulders, Sember cried out in sheer joy, "Runcandel! Oh my god, it's actually a Runcandel." Jin felt a bit awkward. I completely forgot about him because of Kinzello. Seeing how thrilled he is makes me feel kind of guilty. Overflowing with gratitude, Sember practically shouted, "I will never forget this debt as long as I live." Jin, who was carrying the sleeping Mesa on his back, casually replied, "No need for that. We're just doing a job we got paid for. Let's get out of here." On their way back, Jin grew curious and asked, "So, how did the Kinzello group manage to kidnap you in the first place?" "We were under the impression we were looking for a missing person." Sember lowered his voice, looking rather embarrassed, and admitted, "Actually, I followed my lover out here." Jin was surprised. "Your lover? Did you two run away together?" He scratched his cheek, looking sheepish. "No, actually. The truth is, my lover passed away 2 years ago, but everything, from her face to her voice, and even the 2 moles on her wrist, was exactly like when she was still alive. I know it sounds completely insane, but it's true. There's absolutely no way I could mistake her for someone else." Hearing this, Jin fell deep into thought. A perfect look-alike sounded exactly like the work of Bouvard, the shapeshifter. They must have kidnapped Sember for ransom money. What is the connection between Bouvard and Kinzello? This is the second time I've run into him now, and I've got a really bad feeling about this. I need to meet him face to face to see what kind of guy he really is. He kept thinking, carefully calculating his next steps. His workshop is likely located in the capital of the ducal territory. I should find an opportunity to pay him a visit while I'm still in the intermediate training class. Behind him, Sember bowed his head low, his voice choking up with emotion. "Thank you so much for actually listening to me instead of just calling me crazy." He clasped his hands together in gratitude as tears streamed down his face. "My family will be sending reinforcements soon, so we should head back. To think you even brought a guardian knight with you just to rescue someone as insignificant as me." Jin only threw a brief glance back, secretly thinking to himself, "I didn't do it for you, buddy. It was all for Mesa." Sember kept pouring his heart out, saying, "Lord Jin, I will remember this encounter for the rest of my life." Jin couldn't care less and casually replied, "Right, whatever you say." As the sun began to rise over the horizon, Sember added, "If you ever need anything, please don't hesitate to ask." Jin replied in his usual indifferent tone, "I'll keep that in mind." Gilly greeted him with a bright smile, her voice filled with immense pride. "Congratulations on successfully completing your very first mission. Young master, your nanny is absolutely thrilled." He gave a soft smile and said, "Thank you, Gilly." She replied warmly, "You must be exhausted. I've already prepared a warm bath for you." Jin nodded appreciatively, as thoughtful as always. Sensing a sharp gaze from earlier, he walked over and reached out to pet the cat. "Well, look who it is, my little Nabi. Were you a good boy while I was gone?" But out of nowhere, the cat bit down hard on his hand. Jin reflexively flung it away. Now, usually, throwing animals is a big no-no, but since Murakhan is actually a dragon, it's perfectly fine. He yelled in frustration, "What the hell is wrong with you? Why did you bite me?" Rubbing a fresh bump on his head, Murakhan growled as his fur puffed up in sheer annoyance. "Are you insane? You've lost your damn mind!" The cat pounced, scratching wildly and swinging his claws as he scolded. "I explicitly warned you not to release your soul energy. How many times did I warn you that it could literally kill you? Everything I tell you is for your own damn good." Jin tried to fend him off, protesting. "Wait, just listen to me for a second." But the cat form dissolved, revealing Murakhan in his human form, absolutely furious. He grabbed Jin by the collar and shook him violently, shouting, "What is there to hear? Is there anything more important than the life of Solderet's only contractor?" Gilly quickly rushed to intervene. "Lord Murakhan, please. The young master has only just returned." He lowered his voice slightly but remained firm. "Step aside, strawberry pie. This is an incredibly serious matter." Knowing she couldn't stop him, she sighed. "I understand." Turning back to Jin, Murakhan unleashed another thunderous rant. "A cadet was kidnapped right before my eyes. Was I just supposed to sit there and do nothing? I was worried she might get killed, but what about the pendant? Is it just a piece of jewelry to you? Its significance is 100 times greater than your actual life." Straightening his collar, Jin argued back. "Using it now would be a total waste. Who knows when I'll have to face a much more powerful enemy." Hearing this, Murakhan was completely dumbfounded. "A waste?" Gilly chimed in helplessly. "Lord Murakhan, please." Jin remained totally unfazed, asking, "Is this really something to get this worked up about?" Driven completely mad, Murakhan barked, "You ungrateful little brat." Jin frowned slightly, looking puzzled. "Wait, but how did you even know I awakened the sword?" Murakhan snorted coldly. Your soul energy just jumped from 3-star to semi-4-star. Do you think I'm blind? Jin circulated his energy, clearly feeling the new surge of power coursing through him. Startled, he muttered, I did feel a sudden rush of power, so I actually went up a rank. Murakhan shot back sharply. You should be on your knees thanking Solderet for keeping you alive. Pointing at the flickering blue flame in Jin's hand, Murakhan said in a grave tone, out of 10 people who experienced soul energy overload, well, make that 11 now, but whatever. Out of all of them, 9 ended up dead. Curious, Jin asked. I can guess one of those 2 is me, but who's the other? Is it the first patriarch? Murakhan casually pointed at himself. Well, it's not me. And Temar is long dead anyway. Surprised? He then waved his hand, sounding completely indifferent. I guess you and I aren't so different after all. Don't worry. I have no intention of going through that kind of pain ever again. I'm off to take a bath. Furious, Murakhan roared. That little brat, Gilly, you should starve him until he comes to his senses. Gilly simply sidestepped the outburst and said calmly, Excuse me, I'll go prepare some food for the young master. Just like that, Murakhan was left behind, muttering pitifully, strawberry pie, that spoiled brat. Inside a luxurious room, a cold voice echoed. Jin fought and defeated a warrior of the White Wolf tribe? How could something so absurd even happen? Someone replied, Of course it's nonsense. It was probably just some bandit dressed up as a wolf. Miu gasped, her voice thick with doubt. How could a fledgling 3-star knight possibly kill a member of the White Wolf tribe? Jin Runcandel, the 9th flag bearer of the Runcandel family, smiled mysteriously. Actually, there is a way to pull that off. The guy Jin fought was probably just weak. Jin Runcandel, the 8th flag bearer of the Runcandel family, immediately retorted. But it still makes no sense. What's even harder to believe is that Mother actually fell for his story. She cast a meaningful glance their way. Isn't that right, Haytona Daytona? The 2 boys quickly forced a smile and agreed. Of course. But the moment Anne turned away, the Tona twins whispered to each other. Do you think Jin really killed him? Daytona whispered back. He's a monster, but that should have been too much even for him. Then, growing frustrated, he spoke up. The real issue isn't whether he killed the White Wolf or not. It's the fact that he's about to enter the intermediate training class. The other brother nodded hesitantly. Yeah. Both of them couldn't help but picture Jin's terrifying gaze. If Jin joins the intermediate class, we're dead meat. His voice seemed to echo in their minds. Should I beat you 2 with my sword or my fists? Their faces went pale as they sat there, scared out of their wits. Miu sneered. What are you 2 whispering about? Is Jin moving to the intermediate class scaring you 2 that much? Of course not, the Tona twins answered in unison. She turned her head, wearing a playful smirk. Oh, come on, just be honest with your big sisters. Suddenly, her gaze turned cold and terrifying. Because the thing I hate most is a liar's mouth. It makes me want to rip their tongue right out. Shaking, the 2 mumbled. We're terrified of Jin. Anne slowly offered. Do you want us to help you? Confused, they asked. How? The 2 brothers grew excited as she continued. We'll let you borrow our personal slaves to do whatever you want with. The Runcandel intermediate class is essentially a survival of the fittest for eligible cadets, ranked from 3-star to 5-star. This includes both brand new cadets and those who have been stuck in this class for over 10 years. Miu and Anne had gathered a small group of these held-back cadets and treated them like slaves. She said coldly, You can use them to ruin Jin. We hate him just as much. The 2 sisters exchanged glances, their lips curling into a wicked smile. But if you screw this up, you'd better be prepared for the consequences, my dear little brothers. Meanwhile, Jin stepped out after his bath, feeling refreshed. He thought to himself that since he had successfully completed his first mission, his entry into the intermediate class was a done deal. On top of that, I have also reached 4-star in spiritual energy. To use this energy effectively, I need to reach 6-star swordsmanship within 5 years at the latest. Becoming a 6-star swordsman means being recognized as an elite warrior, and from 7-star onward, one is considered a master. But those titles are only special to ordinary people. From 8-star and beyond, it is considered extraordinary, and everything completely changes. Furthermore, among the over 2 billion people on the continent, fewer than 100 are 9-star or 10-star. And only a single person has surpassed those limits. A demigod, a Genesis Knight. Jin clenched his fist with determination. In this life, I will reach the Genesis realm. No, I will go even further. He sat down, calmly planning his next move. So, The first hurdle to overcome is my own advancement. The Tona twins are already in the intermediate class. I've already anticipated it, even though I haven't experienced it yet. Once I step into that class, all of my siblings will be watching me. Not just the Tona twins. Jin picked up a pastry, almost hearing Gilly's voice saying, "Eat up, young master." He chuckled helplessly. The beginner class was full of kids of the same rank, so the atmosphere was friendly. But in the intermediate class, there's no room for being soft. In a place where strength and skill are the only things that matter, there is only one thing I must do. His eyes flashed with a cold iron determination. I will dominate the intermediate class with pure strength. A knock sounded on the door. Rosa, who was busy writing, called out, "Come in." Jin stepped inside and asked, "Did you call for me, mother?" Sitting elegantly behind her desk, she calmly replied, "Yes." Rosa slowly continued, "I heard you completed your mission safely, with outstanding results." Jin smiled and replied simply, "Thank you, mother." "Oh right, I remember." Hearing Gilly's report, Rosa's voice suddenly turned cold. "You rejected my offer to change rooms?" She clasped her hands, leaning forward slightly, as her overwhelming aura filled the entire room. "As you know, that room is only reserved for those who could become the future patriarch. Ever since Joshua left, it has remained empty. You should use it from now on." Jin replied coldly, "Thank you, mother, but I cannot accept it." Rosa frowned slightly. "Why?" He calmly explained, "It might be a great room, but at the end of the day, it is still just a room. And for me, that room feels a bit too much." She pressed further, "So, you really do not want it?" Jin nodded. "Yes, I have made up my mind." Rosa fell silent, her fingers tapping rhythmically on the table as she pondered. Finally, she gave a slight nod. "Very well. You may leave." Jin bowed respectfully and departed. "Yes, mother." Left alone, Rosa rested her chin on her hand and sighed helplessly. "I can't tell if my youngest son has no greed, or if he is just too ambitious. The place I just mentioned is the Elder's Room, reserved only for the child who will take over the Runcandel clan in the future. He must know that the moment he steps into that room, he will receive backing worthy of it. But at the same time, he will become a target for all the children who failed to claim it. He probably realized I was testing him. Now, let's see how he performs in the intermediate class." Jin gathered his allies and firmly announced, "Starting tomorrow, I will be attending the intermediate class, and that class is full of factions. All of you will be marked as my people, meaning you will have to endure pain and humiliation." He looked around, his voice dropping but remaining steady. "But do not be afraid. I will not let them get away with it. And all of this will stop once I completely conquer the intermediate class. Then," Jin commanded. "Until then, everyone must stick together or move in groups of at least 3, even when you are not training. Try to avoid walking around alone. Got it?" Everyone replied in unison, "Understood." The next morning, at the Runcandel training grounds, the clan elder, an 8-star knight and younger brother of Jin Runcandel, stepped forward and roared for attention. His voice boomed like thunder. "This year, 10 newcomers have joined us, while 27 cadets have dropped out. The new recruits should learn how an intermediate cadet lives from their seniors. My job is to teach and grade your swordsmanship. Short of murder, you are expected to handle any situation or accident on your own." Jed suddenly barked, "Veterans, what is the lesson I always teach you?" They chanted in unison, their voices pounding against the newcomers like a heavy drum of pressure. "Runcandel has no use for the weak. Runcandel has no use for the weak. Runcandel has no use for the weak. Runcandel has no use for the weak." Jin sighed softly. "So noisy. These words are dripping with malice, clearly meant to break our spirits." Scanning the ranks, his eyes caught the familiar faces of the Tona brothers. But Jin's gaze quickly locked onto the guy standing right next to them, Kajin. The man beside them seemed to be a veteran cadet. I doubt they recruited him on their own. I wonder if they got some help from Mayu and Anne. I'm sure they want to break the rookies, but... A knowing smile suddenly played on his lips. "I'll show them just how wrong they are." Jin stepped forward, standing firm in front of all the cadets. The Tona brothers panicked slightly. "What the hell? Why is that crazy bastard walking toward us?" The other tried to calm him down. "Don't be such a coward. As of today, we have Mayu and Anne backing us up." Suddenly, he drew his sword, the cold steel gleaming. Without a single word of warning, his blade slashed down at Kajin. The Tona brothers were utterly speechless. Even Jed was taken aback by the sudden sight. Jin had completely severed his right arm. Kajin froze before collapsing, clutching his wound and screaming in agony. Jin sheathed his sword, his expression completely calm, as if he had just done something completely natural, punishing someone who deserved a warning. He coldly muttered, "Call a medic," but deep down, he was utterly ruthless. "It wasn't me, it was you guys." Daytona rushed forward, shouting in a rage, "Are you crazy? Why did you suddenly swing your sword?" Without even sparing him a glance, Jin calmly asked the man trembling on the ground, "Cadet, what is your name?" The man replied, shaking, I am Kajin Ramello." Jin asked again, his voice flat, "Do you know why I cut you?" Daytona hissed, drawing his sword and pointing it straight at Jin. "Hey, why are you ignoring us? Draw your sword again." Jin turned, his gaze sharp as a razor as it swept over Daytona. "Brother, can't you see I am speaking with Kajin? I will accept your duel later, but for now, shut up." Daytona couldn't hold back anymore either. He stepped forward and roared, "You bastard! How dare you act like this after cutting down my cadet?" The moment the words left his mouth, he realized he had slipped up. Jin's lips curled into a mocking smirk. "My cadet? So, this guy belongs to your faction, does he? Brother, I only cut him because he was looking at me with pure bloodlust." All around them, the other cadets began whispering, "Is this a power struggle?" Jed, who had been watching from the start, let out a faint smile. Instead of breaking their younger brother's spirit, they're the ones who just got taught a lesson. From what the Tona brothers had blurted out, Kajin now openly belonged to their faction. Because of this, Jin's action was no longer seen as a random attack, but rather, a valid part of the Runcandel clan's long-standing tradition. In this intense battle for dominance, he just did something incredibly bold. Suddenly, his face hardens, as his powerful voice echoes across the training ground. "Cadets, listen up. I am Jin Runcandel. You can point your swords at me, or try to ambush me like you just did. But, if you show even the slightest bit of defiance, I won't hesitate to cut you down, just like I did to him." Just then, Zed's voice booms like low thunder. Jin Runcandel, the youngest child of the clan. Turning around, Jin replies respectfully, "Yes, Elder." The Elder steps out from the shadows, his eyes burning red with fury. "Do you actually think you're allowed to behave like that in front of me?" Jin nonchalantly replies, "Yes, I do." Zed asks, "And why is that?" Jin delivers a single line that leaves everyone absolutely speechless. "Because I didn't think I was fighting the Tona twins. I was fighting you, Elder." Instantly, Zed's brow furrows. In a split second, Zed's terrifying aura explodes as he opens his palm, massive energy swirling around him. "You? Fighting me? How amusing." With those words, the sword in his hand flashes and points straight at Jin's throat. "Explain yourself. Depending on your answer, I might just take your head right here, right now." But Jin stands firm, his voice as cold as steel. "You chose a very specific way to intimidate the cadets, even though I'm in this class. That is what I was thinking about when you attacked me." Gathering his power, Zed unleashes a lightning-fast slash. A sharp wave of sword energy grazes past Jin's face. The sheer speed blows his hair wild and leaves a thin cut on his cheek. But Jin's razor-sharp, cold eyes don't even blink. Zed's voice drops, filled with curiosity and test. "So, you weren't happy with me intimidating the cadets, and that's why you caused this absolute mess?" Standing tall and proud, Jin replies, "Aside from the part about me being unhappy, yes, that is exactly it." The Elder inquires, "If that's the case, shouldn't you have swung your sword at me instead? Why did you injure a cadet?" Jin answers decisively, "Because I can't beat you yet. If I knew I could win, I wouldn't have targeted Kajin or my brothers. I would have gone straight for you." Zed's hand begins to summon his sword again, sword energy swirling violently, but his voice remains calm, like the dead quiet before a storm. "It seems you don't value your life very much. Or are you just relying too heavily on the fact that you are the patriarch's son?" Jin replies flatly, "That is not it." Every word he speaks leaves the crowd in stunned silence. "I don't think standing by and doing nothing just because an opponent is stronger is what a Runcandel should do. Losing one's life is only for a moment, but honor lasts forever, does it not?" Zed pauses for a moment, then suddenly bursts out laughing. "How utterly foolish. An arrogant brat like you is so ridiculous that you actually made your uncle laugh." His laughter abruptly stops, replaced by an indifferent look. "Fine, I'll let you have this one. You truly belong in the Runcandel clan." Zed turns to face all the cadets, his voice booming like thunder. "Cadets, do not forget this day. What you witness today is the true spirit of the Runcandel family. What this brat showed us is the very essence of our clan's swordsmanship. He roars his command. Cadets, fight. Never lose sight of who you are. Zed lowers his voice to wrap up the session. Dismissed. Training begins tomorrow. The cadets reply in unison, yes, sir. Meanwhile, the Tona brothers hang their heads, a wave of intense bitterness washing over them. Damn it. Even so, Jin approaches them with a friendly grin. I'm going to give you guys some advice as your younger brother. You might be terrified of our older siblings right now, but will it always be that way? Stop focusing only on what's right in front of you. It would be much better for you to look at the bigger picture. When he returns home, Gilly excitedly steps out to greet him. Young master, you're back early. As soon as Jin walks in, he calls out to Gilly. She replies, yes, young master, but he drops a line that makes her completely freeze. I've officially started a power struggle with the Tona twins, and I suspect my two older sisters, Anne and Mew, are backing them. Gilly doesn't seem to fully grasp the situation yet. Jin recounts the day's events. I ended up injuring a cadet who was on my brother's side. After looking into it, he actually belonged to my sister's faction. But because my brothers slipped up, he's now considered one of theirs. If my sisters find out, they are going to lose their minds. A mocking smirk plays on his lips. First of all, there's no way my brothers could ever secure a 5-star knight on their side, because my sisters only recruit people who are weaker than themselves. Gilly furrows her brow slightly, but both of the young ladies are already flag bearers. There's an unwritten rule that flag bearers only fight flag bearers. Jin smiles calmly. It's fine. Honestly, I'm quite glad they've started targeting me. In fact, it's a huge advantage for me. Since they are flag bearers, they have absolutely no reason to make a direct move on me. The only thing they can really do is mess with the roster of my squad. They'll use their flag bearer privileges to increase the difficulty of my missions, hoping I'll get severely injured or die. However, among those high difficulty missions, there are plenty of solo ones. And on solo missions, there's no one around to keep an eye on me, which means I can unleash my full power during those tasks. Gilly's eyes light up as realization dawns on her. If that's the case, then this is actually a fantastic opportunity. Jin chuckles. Exactly, his voice filled with excitement. All I need to do is be grateful to my sisters and rack up my achievements. Reaching down to pick up Murakhan, Jin adds, and I'm sure bringing a cat along won't be a problem at all. Wait, what? He widened his eyes. Oh my gosh. Yet, Jin still kept a completely nonchalant face as he said, but Murakhan, I'm not taking you with me on this mission, because I have a different mission for you. Murakhan tilted his head, his voice dripping with annoyance. Another mission? He immediately questioned, what is it? Jin only gave a mysterious smile. I'll tell you next time. Until then, the two of us need to keep a low profile. Gilly also smiled. Nodding slightly, she said, yes, young master. At the training ground, Zed's deep, raspy voice echoed, carrying its usual intimidating pressure. Next, once the three of you finish your afternoon training, you will receive special training in the secret training ground. Only those who carry the Runcandel bloodline are allowed to use it. Those are the privileges reserved for purebloods. But don't you dare expect this training to be easy. Got it? The cadets shouted in unison. Yes, sir, he continued. Our family's swordsmanship focuses on raw power. It is destructive and unwavering, to fight, to win, to possess. All the traits of the Runcandel family are reflected in our swordsmanship. There is no fixed form for our family's swordsmanship, though there are a few signature and secret techniques that only official flag bearers are allowed to learn. Jin glanced over to the corner. It looked like his sisters were absolutely furious. Zed continued to emphasize that this swordsmanship had no specific form. None at all, whether in footwork or rules. This is the biggest difference between the Runcandel family and other clans. Suddenly, he spoke up and asked, do you know why our family's swordsmanship has no fixed form? He immediately raised his hand and answered decisively, because of the unique physical capabilities and talents that the Runcandel family possesses. Zed replied, indeed, being a Runcandel means you carry noble blood. You possess a physical body and a talent for swordsmanship far beyond the wildest dreams of ordinary people. Even with a slight deviation, you are still vastly superior to commoners. He smirked, showing a wicked grin. What you have learned so far was easy and simple. Now, I will give each of you a steel ball. Jin took it, holding it in his hand with suspicion. What's this? Is there something inside? A piece of steel? Zed began to explain in detail. It's called a resonance stone because when you strike it, a clear sound will ring out. He began to bring his sword close to the ball. Now, I will let you hear the 3 types of sounds the resonance stone can make. Listen closely. With that, Zed lightly tapped the ball with his sword. A piercing screech rang out, sharp as a knife slicing through their eardrums, making many of them wince and groan. He asked in a bone-chilling tone, "A terrible sound, isn't it?" This time, Zed gripped his sword tightly and swung it down hard. And here is the next sound. But the sound that rang out wasn't grating at all. It was a beautiful, clear chime that resonated through the air like singing metal, leaving everyone in awe. He spoke slowly. As you just heard, the resonance stone produces different sounds depending on the amount of force you use to strike it. If your strike is too weak, it will make a dull, muffled sound. But if you strike it with the perfect amount of force, the sound will be magnificent. Jin immediately understood. I see. So this training is to make sure we produce this exact sound with every single strike. It means we're training our control, mental strength, and focus. Considering the physical capabilities of the Runcandel family, this is the perfect training exercise, despite being relatively simple. But even so, this is just repeatedly striking a resonance stone. It's way too safe to be considered a special training session, one reserved only for the Runcandels. Zed raised his sword once again, and now, for the final sound. Jin wondered with curiosity, what could this third sound be? I definitely heard something rattling inside the resonance stone, like steel shards. In an instant, he brought down a devastating slash onto the ball, and Jin's eyes flashed. No way. He immediately lunged forward, shouting at the 2 Tona brothers to get down. The blade came down, splitting the steel ball wide open. Instantly, a horrific explosion erupted. Jin used all his strength to shove both of them out of the way. In the air, fierce flames raged before leaving behind a thick cloud of smoke and dust. Everyone was knocked flat to the ground. Only a few weak groans could be heard. The Tona brothers clutched their heads in a daze. What on earth just happened? Zed praised Jin. The youngest seems to have quite the intuition. He calmly explained, if you strike the resonance stone too hard, it explodes. Just like that. A cunning smile appeared on his face. All right, now that you know everything you need to, let the training begin. Realizing that Jin was completely unharmed, he praised him. After Luna, you're the first person to walk away from that explosion without a single scratch. Zed stroked his chin, thinking seriously to himself, I've taught almost all of your siblings. Simple exercises like this are usually just a formality. I didn't really expect anyone to escape the explosion, either. Suddenly, Jin interrupted. Excuse me. He raised his hand like a well-behaved student and asked bluntly, So, how did my eldest sister, Luna, dodge the explosion? Hearing his question, he was somewhat reluctant to answer truthfully. I'm afraid you might be disappointed when you hear it. And yet, all of your older siblings pulled it off. But Jin didn't mind. That's fine. Seeing how calm Jin was, Zed finally 7 recounted. To be honest, Luna didn't dodge it at all. Just like you, your sister was hit by the blast just like the other kids. Back then, she was blinded by the flash of the explosion and couldn't get away in time. Zed recalled how shocked he had been at the time, but she didn't get hurt by it at all. He's way too strong. Hearing his story, all 3 of them were completely dumbfounded. Zed then instructed, Oh, and starting today, the 3 of you must train with the Azure Stone every afternoon, until you can master it to the point where, no matter the situation, you can hear its sound. Only then can you stop. Understood? The 3 of them replied one by one, Yes, sir. The scene shifts to a room bathed in warm sunlight. Taimyun brings in afternoon tea and calls out to Lady Luna. She looks over and softly replies, Thank you, Nanny. Setting down the teacup, she brought up the matter Luna had mentioned. About what you told me last time. Luna politely asked, You mean about our siblings trying to assassinate Jin? Taimyun sat down in the adjacent chair and explained everything to her. Lady Mayu and Lady Anne already suspect me. They also know a lot about young Master Jin, so there's a very high probability. Hearing this, Luna analyzed the situation. Their actions are a bit reckless, and for what? Are they seriously crazy enough to attempt an assassination inside Storm Castle? After all, they are banned from participating in the Runcandel succession war anyway. Luna's face darkened with sadness at the mention of them. Besides, if Father finds out about their plan, this entire house will be turned upside down, and their lives will be in grave danger. Taimyun kindly asked, Do you think there's any chance young Master Jin is lying? What if it was just a misunderstanding? Luna seriously thought about her younger brother. He is already 10 years old, so I think both scenarios are possible. Besides, we've been investigating that incident for 5 years now, and we haven't found a single thing. I don't think Jin is lying. She recalled her younger brother's cold, calm, and terrifying face from when he was little. I don't know, but I almost died. He was so wary of me back then. The more she thought about it, the more Luna felt something was off, her grip tightening on her teacup. I don't think he just randomly felt that way, either. I believe it was his gut instinct. He genuinely sensed it. Hearing this, Taimyun asked for her opinion. Should I investigate Lady Mew and Lady Anne first? Then, Luna set her teacup down. I'll leave it in your hands. Being stuck in a dead end like this is making me anxious. This whole thing is giving me a really bad feeling. Taimyun expressed her concern. I'm the one who's worried here. I'm afraid your own siblings will end up hurting you again. Luna gave a soft, reassuring smile. Nanny, I'm way past 13. You don't need to worry about me. Suddenly she wondered, by the way, is Jin doing well? Taimyun understood her curiosity. Are you referring to his training with Lord Zed? Resting her chin on her hand, she replied, it's about time he shows me the results of his training. Picturing his training, she smiled gently. He might get a little bruised up by the Azure Stone, but I'm sure he'll do just fine. Watching him grow brings me so much joy. The next day, the 4-hour afternoon training session began. Jin was drenched in sweat, gasping for air. He thought to himself, of all the training sessions I've endured, this one is by far the worst. Zed, looking over some documents, magnanimously ordered, take a 5-minute break. Holding his sword, Jin began to meditate, but his mind wouldn't stop racing. At first, I thought this training was meant to help me control my strength and willpower, but that's not it at all. From the very beginning, I had to focus on suppressing my own aura. Recalling how Zed shattered the Azure Stone, Jin resolved to destroy it without relying on that power, just like his uncle did. Right now, I still lack fundamental strength. Jin's hands trembled from overexertion, barely able to hold a steady grip. I need to train harder to make my aura even stronger. As these endless thoughts flooded his mind, he tried to clear his mind. Taking a deep breath, he told himself, I must train to clearly hear its sound and effortlessly shatter the Azure Stone. After his mind wandered for a bit, Jin tried to regain control. Don't rush. Just stay calm. This is just something my older siblings had to master before reaching adulthood in my past life. I can definitely do it too. Zed opened his eyes and glanced at the three of them, his crimson gaze seeming to pierce through everything. He silently praised them. All three of them are doing quite well and making steady progress. Meanwhile, Haytona gritted his teeth and barked, you literally just said it cracked. Daytona refused to back down despite trembling and barely being able to stand. Where? Where is the crack? Next, Zed evaluated Jin, who was deeply focused on his meditation, and found him to be the most exceptional. Stroking his chin with a smirk of satisfaction, he thought, he might actually break Luna's record. As night fell, a voice echoed, shattering the silence. How ridiculous. Looking down at the Tona twins collapsed on the floor, Zed instructed, give this to your brothers. If they plan on passing out again tomorrow, they don't even need to show up. Jin obediently complied. Understood. Crossing his arms, Zed watched the twins support each other as they walked away, then stared at Jin's retreating figure. He quietly observed, the Tona twins held out longer than I expected. A Runcandel is a Runcandel, after all. Seeing how confidently Jin walked away, he thought, and then there's the youngest. At that thought, Zed yelled out in frustration, why does he have to be the youngest? He felt a deep, bitter regret. If only the boy had been born 10 years earlier, he could have been the genius to swallow the entire Runcandel clan whole. What would his damn brother even do then? What a tragic waste. Bellup looked incredibly gloomy as he slumped down. No matter how he thought about it, it was just such a shame, such a massive shame. 1 month later, in May of 1795, at the Intermediate Cadet Training Ground, someone standing above shouted, attention! A voice boomed out as someone read the announcement. The first mission of the year for the intermediate class has been issued. Cadets, whose names are called, step forward. The first mission is a protection detail. The blacksmiths you need to guard are rookies from the McSmith merchants. Those selected are Aston and Billing. Everyone stood straight in line to hear the next announcement. The third mission is monster subjugation. The targets of the subjugation are orcs. Looking down at the long announcement sheet, the speaker suddenly paused. The mission takes place in an unprotected zone, the Kuran region. As for those selected, he stared at the paper, hesitating for a long moment, as if he couldn't believe his eyes. Then, the names called out left Bellup and Mesa completely stunned. Mesa, Bellup, Scott, Tymont, Kiko, Eddington, Sierra, Phils, David. For the 10 selected, after finishing the announcement, he rolled up the parchment and reminded them that there are a total of 25 orcs. She remained silent, lost in her thoughts. He continued to warn them that orcs travel in packs and are extremely violent, so they must steel their resolve for this mission. Then he concluded, "That is all. Petra will give you the rest of the details. Farewell." Daytona asked the person next to him, "Rookies going on an orc subjugation?" The guy next to him sneered. "What can they even do? Half of them are as good as dead." Mayu laughed mockingly. "Better start prepping the coffins and incense." Even with his arms bandaged up, Kajin smugly chimed in. "You guys still have some time before the mission, plenty of time to write a will." "Hey, Blondie." The whole gang of them then mocked them by pretending to clasp their hands in prayer. "Or maybe you can go beg young Master Jin to save you." "Oh, we are so scared." Tymont snapped in anger. "What did you just say?" Mesa quickly grabbed his arm to stop him. "Let it go. We can't beat them yet, and the mission hasn't even started. Getting hurt now would just cause unnecessary trouble." He refused to back down and argued back. "But Mesa, those bastards, and what about the young master?" At this, she couldn't hold back and snapped, "Shut up and stand still. Have you forgotten? This is the Runcandel clan." Her small but fierce figure stood tall among the crowd, as she spoke with absolute resolve. "We must carry out the mission we were given, and return alive once it is done." Mesa was furious, but her eyes blazed with a fierce, brilliant determination. "That is the only way we can ever defeat them." Haytona grit his teeth and raised his sword high above his head with both hands. A second later, he brought them down with sharp, decisive force. Cracks began to spiderweb across the surface of the orb. Haytona gasped in panic, his eyes stretching wide. Ah! Before he could even process what was happening, a massive explosion erupted, sending thick smoke billowing through the air. Through the haze, a frustrated curse could be heard clear as day. "Damn it!" He screamed the name of his twin brother at the top of his lungs. Receiving no response, Haytona raised his voice again, calling out desperately, "Jin." His plea sounded incredibly urgent now. Reacting purely on instinct, Jin whipped his head around only to see a glowing mass hurtling straight toward him. Jin swiftly dodged and gripped his weapon tightly. Haytona finally snapped out of his daze. He rushed over, asking anxiously, "Jin, are you okay?" "I didn't mean to do that." Even though he was in a bit of pain, Jin still politely replied, "I am fine, brother. Could you take this somewhere else, please?" Haytona quickly complied. "Sure, I am sorry." Jin watched the retreating backs of the Daytona and Haytona brothers, thinking to himself, "It has already been 1 month since I began training with the Pure Stone. Those two actually managed to blow it up already. That is faster than I expected." Jin unconsciously looked down at his palm and wondered, "But what was that sensation I just felt?" For a brief moment, his nerves felt as taut as bowstrings, and his pupils dilated fully, as if the trajectory of the Iron Stone had just barely missed. Snapping back to reality, Jin realized it had been drawn along the path of the flying arrow. He lightly traced the stone in front of him, thinking, "If an Iron Stone were to fly at me right now, I think I could dodge it with ease." His lips pressed into a tight line, his brow furrowed so deeply they almost met, his eyes intensely focused, and his mind sharp. Could this feeling be connected to the training I did with Sister Luna? Slowly tightening his grip on his sword, Jin stared at the pure stone and whispered to himself, "Before this sensation slips away, let us do it one more time." Right at that moment, a powerful voice boomed, "Attention!" Zed stared at them grimly, his voice carrying a harsh edge. "You have all been assigned a mission." Whatever information he had just delivered made the two brothers grit their teeth in sheer terror. And that event was indeed that event. Immediately after, one of them collapsed while the other threw his head back, both clutching their faces as they wailed in sheer despair. Why does it have to be the Zipfel Empire? Just thinking about it makes me sick and exhausted. I absolutely hate formal event clothes. They are way too tight. Facing his nephew's absolute misery, Zed deadpanned, "My condolences." To make matters worse, he rubbed salt in their wounds. "Thanks to you two, your other siblings do not have to dance at the Imperial Banquet Hall." But suddenly, Zed's tone shifted to a harsh interrogation, his eyes narrowing with fury. "Even if it is just an event, it is still a mission. How dare you complain? Show me that attitude one more time, and I'll show you what it really means to want to die. Hearing that, the two brothers quickly straightened up and yelled in unison, "We're sorry, Uncle." At this moment, Jin kept a calm look on his face, but he was already analyzing the situation in his head. Did sisters Mew and Anne maliciously plan to punish the brothers who weren't good at swordsmanship? It was hard to believe they were being sent to the Vermont Empire event. Zed continued to warn them in a loud voice, as this was a major event that even the Runcandel family couldn't easily turn down. Some incredibly powerful people would be there just for entertainment. Go and observe them, and see if you can learn anything. Daytona and Haytona tried to raise their voices to hide their boredom, shouting, "Yes, sir." Then, he turned to the one who had been quiet the whole time, and Jin heard his name called. He replied immediately, "Yes, Uncle." Zed read from his ledger, "Your assigned mission is." He hesitated for a moment, but quickly declared in a clear, commanding voice, to assassinate a key figure. The target is a plaything of Talaris, the master of the ice castle, one of her lovers, to be exact. Zed looked up, staring straight into Jin's eyes, and asked, "You know about the ice castle and its master, don't you?" He quickly replied, "Yes, Uncle." The ice castle refers to a massive tower rising from the sea west of the continent, and its master is the one who rules over it. The 51st master of the ice castle, Talaris, is known as the Spider of the Abyss. She is notorious for ruthlessly torturing anyone who dares to lay a hand on her lovers. A moment later, Zed handed Jin a file, while adding a warning, the ice castle is an independent force that lies completely outside the control of either the Runcandel or Zipfel families. You know how powerful the ice castle and its master are, right? The target's name is Alcaro Chenderer. Right now, he is protected by guards from the ice castle and is staying in the lawless region of Mammoth. Before Jin could even react, Daytona and Haytona widened their eyes in utter shock. "What? Mammoth?" Fearing they would get scolded, the two of them quickly began whispering to each other. An assignment that goes as far as Mammoth is a job for a guardian knight. Even if Jin is talented, isn't this way too much for him? Meanwhile, Jin looked at his uncle calmly and spoke up. "Uncle, I have a question." Jin rubbed his chin with a doubtful look. "The client for this mission is the Chenderer family, so does that mean they want to kill one of their own descendants?" Zed crossed his arms, nodded, and confirmed. "Exactly. It seems the Chenderer family tried everything they could to bring him back, but they failed. They probably figured it's better to kill him than risk him leaking family secrets. So, do you think you can pull off this mission?" Having received the answer he wanted, Jin declared with absolute confidence, "I'll do it." His uncle was slightly taken aback by such a decisive response. "Why would you?" But Zed didn't ask out loud, keeping his thoughts to himself. Does this kid not know about the ice castle and Mammoth? How could he agree so instantly? I thought I'd have to complain to Chiron if he refused. Finally, he ended the conversation with a sigh. Well, whatever. Being decisive is a good thing. Then, Zed stayed a bit longer to give a few more instructions. The three of them would set off 2 days later. Daytona and Haytona still couldn't believe what they were hearing. "Uncle, is Jin really going to Mammoth?" Zed replied in an irritated, annoyed tone. "If he wants to go, why should I stop him? Afternoon training is cancelled until the mission is over. Personal training will be restricted so it doesn't interfere with the mission." The three of them took turns responding, "Understood, Uncle." Suddenly, Haytona's tone became incredibly gentle as he softly called out, "Hey Jin, little bro." Jin turned around and asked, "What is it?" Haytona hesitated slightly. If things get bad, just tell them you're a Runcandel. No one will dare lay a finger on you." Seeing the two brothers cheering him on so passionately, Jin grew suspicious, thinking, "What's this about? Are you guys actually worried about me?" Caught off guard, the two of them instantly denied it. "No. Since when were we ever worried about you? Exactly, we're the ones who are going to beat you, so don't you dare die before then." Though his back was already turned, he replied, "You guys should change your minds by the time I get back." With that, Jin decisively stabbed the tip of his sword straight into the pure stone and lifted it right up. Daytona and Haytona hugged each other in pure terror. They stared in utter confusion, neither of them daring to utter a single word. Then, a bright smile suddenly spread across his face, and he casually asked, "By the way, do you guys like our older sisters more, or do you like me?" Right at that moment, Zed's voice boomed authoritatively. "Haytona." "Daytona," the two brothers replied. "Yes, sir." Watching Jin's fading figure in the distance, Zed warned his nephews, Get ready, and just like the youngest said, don't mess with him until you're strong enough. That is, if you want to live a long life. 2 days later, a group of subordinates gathered to see him off. Young master, are you really heading to the lawless region of Mamit? He gave a brief reply. Yeah. Noticing Jin's slightly altered appearance, one of them asked in confusion, but young master, what about your hair color? He explained his plan. I'm going in disguise. I can't let anyone recognize me as a Runcandel. A voice responded. Understood. Jin then continued giving instructions to the group, particularly to Mesa. My mission is different from yours, so I'll be using a different teleportation gate. I have to go through all the standard immigration procedures. Your outdoor mission is a subjugation quest, right? She replied, yes. Looking at the gloomy faces in front of him, he asked in surprise, why do you all look so down? Did something happen? Mesa spoke up on behalf of the group. It is nothing, we just wanted to say our goodbyes. Sensing the heavy mood, Jin chuckled and replied, what do you mean goodbye? You are acting like this is the last time we will ever see each other. Sure, if we get unlucky, some of us might lose our lives, but worrying about it won't change anything, right? So, let's just focus on the task at hand to put everyone's mind at ease. He said softly, I will definitely come back, so do not worry too much. Feeling Jin pat his shoulder, Bellup offered a sheepish smile. Young master, please be careful. Jin gently replied, see you later. Next, he walked over to Gilly and gave her some instructions. They are pretty cute, aren't they? Please protect them. Murakhan quickly spoke up for her, don't worry, I am a dragon. But Jin quickly cut him off. Just don't get caught, and try not to stand out too much. Annoyed by the teasing, Murakhan lost his temper, baring his teeth and snapping back. Geez, you brat, you are the one who needs to watch out and not get caught. And do not get cocky just because you are in disguise. Ignoring the outburst, Jin simply said, I am off. After seeing Jin off, Gilly sighed. It is going to be so quiet around here without Lord Murakhan. Jin comforted her. Just think of it as a nice break. I will bring you back a gift. She warned him with a worried look. But I am still deeply concerned about your mission to assassinate the lover of the Ice Palace's master. I know you are far beyond a mere intermediate cadet, young master, but Mamit is still an incredibly dangerous place. Please stay safe on your journey. Swinging a leg over his horse, Jin replied to Gilly, all right, I will be back. With that, he rode off. A few days later, Jin arrived in Mamit, the lawless land where the lowest of criminals gather. Inside a rundown, dilapidated building, Tun barged in out of nowhere and shouted, hey, you bastards, I just got here, where's my welcome? In response, a mocking voice called out, well, look who it is that Tun? On the run again? He replied angrily, yeah, that is right, I am back. This place was a haven for lawless criminals, rumored to be overrun by the worst of the worst. Right then, a suspicious creaking sound came from the door. Tun and the others turned to look, only to see Jin standing tall at the entrance. He glared at them as he continued his train of thought. Because this place is plagued by scum like them, even the grass refuses to grow here. A few tough-looking thugs stared at Jin and grunted, huh? Is that a newbie? Jin walked straight inside, coldly tossed a coin onto the counter, and ordered cold water and a simple meal. His arrogant and dismissive attitude made a few men sneer, look at this kid. Intrigued, Tun walked over, placed a hand on Jin's shoulder, and asked, you have got a big mouth for a newbie. Who are you, some rogue 9-star knight? After a deceptively polite start, his thuggish nature quickly took over. Hey newbie, shouldn't you learn the rules around here if you are new? Now, get on your knees and lick my toes. The moment those words left Tun's mouth, Jin grabbed him by the collar. Within seconds, a few drops of red blood splattered onto the table. Jin slammed his hand down, stood up, and threatened him in a low growl. How much longer do you expect me to wait? The rest of the thugs froze in shock, unable to react in time. Then, out of nowhere, they all burst into laughter. He is a goner. I knew this day would come. Jin let his shoulders drop in frustration and thought, just like Master said, this place is packed with pure lunatics. To earn the respect of these criminals, one must show them both skill and sheer guts. His fingers tightened around a small dagger as he took a firm step toward the crowd. He helped me so much in both my past and present life. I hope I can repay him one day. Thank you, Master. Walking over to the bar, Jin sat down as the bartender served him a plate of food and a glass of water. Far more polite than the thugs, the man said calmly, I did not poison it. Jin replied without emotion, poison is banned here. I at least know that much. The owner probed further. You know quite a lot for someone so young. Do you have family here? Jin replied bluntly, none of your business. Annoyed by his attitude, the owner quickly changed the subject. What are you looking for? Drugs? I've got some good stuff that is selling out fast. Or are you looking for someone? Without even glancing up, Jin replied flatly, I am looking for someone. Then, lowering his voice, he asked, Is there anyone with the surname Zipfel around here? The owner crossed his arms and closed his eyes to think before answering, No, I am positive. Jin did not push further, and replied, I see. In that case, can you recommend a place to stay the night? Preferably somewhere that is not crawling with bugs. The owner helpfully pointed him in the right direction. There is an inn called the Moonwell on the west side of town. That is where the king of Mammoth stays, so do not go stirring up trouble like you did just now. The place the owner mentioned was indeed the Moonwell Inn, located in western Mammoth. Taking a stroll under the moonlight, Jin took the opportunity to organize his thoughts about his target. Alcaro is the trashy son of a count. He grew up sheltered, never knowing what hard work is. He lives only for pleasure and cheap thrills. He has nothing going for him except his lineage and his face. He is a pathetic coward who bows to the strong and tramples on the weak. The reason he is in this dangerous town is to catch the attention of the Ice Palace's master, who is currently occupied with her lover. Mind. This is the inn he's staying at. That guy from earlier mentioned there's a new banned substance in Mammoth. He must be in his room. Since he's one of the lovers of the mysterious castle's master, he's bound to have guards with him. First, I need to get a handle on the situation inside the room. After walking for a bit, Jin arrived at his destination. The moment he stepped inside the inn, an irritated, screaming voice pierced his ears. Talk about luck. He didn't even have to search his target. Alcaro was right there. He was throwing a massive fit, screaming right in his guard's face. What do you mean you can't do it? You got it for me yesterday without any issues. Seeing Alcaro made Jin practically want to shed a tear of joy. He thought to himself, today must be my lucky day. Who would have thought he'd run into him immediately? Meanwhile, the guards sternly warned, we cannot let you keep doing this to yourself. Desperate, Alcaro resorted to begging. Damn it, come on, I'm begging you. I can't survive even 1 hour without it. The guard stood his ground. No means no, young master. You need to remember that our job is to protect you, not to indulge your every whim. Alcaro completely lost it and screamed, Shut up, I don't want to hear another word. If you bastards won't get it for me, I'll find a way myself. You absolute trash, I'll remember this. The moment my love returns, you're all dead. How dare you sigh in my face like that? Suddenly, the two guards exchanged a knowing glance, silently signaling each other. Alcaro kept shrieking like a madman, You filthy, dirt-eating peasants of the Chender family. I am. Before he could finish his sentence, a staff was slammed hard into his stomach, leaving his eyes rolled back and his mouth agape. A second later, he collapsed onto the guard's arm. The guard sighed in pure exhaustion. How much longer do we have to protect this useless piece of trash? I wish he'd just drop dead from his addiction. Why does the master even keep this worthless scum alive? The other guard quickly cut him off. Shut it. Our job is to do exactly as we're told. Letting your emotions get in the way of a mission is unacceptable. Watching the entire scene unfold from the shadows, Jin silently formulated a plan. Judging by their movements, those guards had to be at least level 6 swordsmen. Taking out Alcaro himself would be as easy as breathing. The real issue is what happens afterward. I have to find a way to lure him out and make a clean getaway from his security detail. Plus, using poison is strictly forbidden here in Mammoth. If I use poison to assassinate him, the entire town of Mammoth will turn against me. But those guards are a massive obstacle. How am I supposed to secretly eliminate Alcaro inside the moonlight well? A few minutes later, a brilliant idea struck him. He slammed the table in excitement and muttered, Aha, perfect. Jin's hair and clothes slowly began to shift colors as a mischievous smirk spread across his face. I've made up my mind. Meanwhile, outside the inn, someone was asking how many guards the target had. Cirrus's close subordinate quickly reported, There are 6 of them, Lady Cirrus. She gave a wry smile, folding up the piece of paper in her hand. I'm sorry, everyone, to put you all through so much trouble just because of a worthless piece of trash who doesn't know his place. Hitton chuckled and replied, Well, today is going to put an end to all that, isn't it? After all, you came all this way yourself just to make things easier for us, my lady. Cirrus stretched her arms casually and replied, True. A nobody like him can be taken out at any time. You said he's staying at the Moonlight. Well, right? Let's get this over with. Good news is always best delivered early. He bowed respectfully. Yes, my lady. Suddenly, a surge of blue electricity crackled in the distance, a clear omen of trouble. Everyone instinctively shielded their eyes from the blinding, hazardous flash. Frowning, Hitton raised his voice to report. My lady, that's coming from the direction of the moonlight. Well. Cirrus stared at where he was pointing and muttered, What on earth? Looks like we picked a really bad day. Back inside the inn, Jin was confidently making his way up the stairs. I'll terrorize the moonlight well with magic right from my own room. I'm only a 4-star mage, but if I infuse my soul power into it, I can unleash a destructive force on par with a 6-star spell. That spell will trick them into thinking a 6-star mage cast it. After all, who would ever suspect a 15-year-old kid of being a 6-star master? Absolutely no one. Not even Viradin, who just recently reached 6-star himself. Thanks to the unique properties of soul power, there won't be a single trace left behind to link the spell back to me. Nobody will suspect a thing. As the plan took shape in his mind, he carefully altered his appearance, changing his hair and clothes to make it look like an external ambush. A lightning summoning spell should do the trick nicely. Jin began the incantation. Black smoke slowly spread across the floor beneath his feet. As the darkness filled the room, Jin confidently chanted the spell, releasing his spiritual energy. In an instant, it felt as though he had plunged into another dimension, surrounded by pitch-black darkness. Jin muttered to himself, realizing he had just put an incredibly terrifying plan into motion. Meanwhile, bright arcs of electricity began to crackle and swirl all around his body. A blinding light seeped into every corner. Jin's eyes lit up, and a smug smile spread across his face as he realized he had succeeded. He had summoned lightning. The sheer brilliance of his power forced everyone to shield their eyes in absolute panic. Yet Cirrus, the captain of the Hidden Palace's 7 swords and daughter of the palace master, remained completely calm, refusing to shield her eyes as she let out a chuckle. What in the world is this? Looks like I chose a terrible day to visit. Jin's lightning was completely tearing through the old tavern. Hitton, quickly reading the situation, realized that someone from the moonlit well must have pissed off a high-level mage. She agreed with him. It certainly looks that way. But then again, this could also be a direct attack targeting the Hidden Palace. 6 of our people are inside that tavern. Not to mention my mother's paramour, Ankaro, is also in there. Realizing this, Cirrus took off in a frantic sprint. Let's go. I don't care what happens to Ankaro. Our people come first. Her 2 guards immediately followed her lead. Understood, Lady Cirrus, but the 3 of them couldn't even get close to the tavern. They were blocked by a wall of lightning that completely blinded them. To make matters worse, they were hit by a massive explosion. Inside the tavern, people were scrambling to escape. Damn it, what piece of trash did this? Hey you bastard, you claimed you killed a Zipfel mage before. What if they're back for revenge? How should I know? Hitton began to lose his patience and rushed forward, cursing under his breath. Damn it. Cirrus panicked and screamed to stop him. Wait. Having sensed something, she shrieked. Hold on, Hitton. Less than a second later, a violent vortex of lightning and wind suddenly erupted, throwing everyone backward. Once the dust finally settled, the ground had been reduced to a devastated wasteland. Hitton asked in utter shock, What on earth is happening? Equally confused, Cirrus replied. That powerful shockwave must have been the final strike. He quickly agreed. I believe so, my lady. Looking at the ruined landscape ahead, she couldn't see a single soul and could only pray that everyone was still safe. At that very moment, not too far away, someone was weakly leaning against a rock to move. It was none other than Jin, panting heavily from exhaustion. Since my final strike fused all of my mana, it was almost at the 7-star level. I'm lucky I avoided fatal injuries thanks to my pendant. It looks like all of the Hidden Palace guards survived, but where's Ankaro? If he's still alive, it'll be a great opportunity for me. Lost in thought, he suddenly noticed a faint yellow light shining down on him. Ceres had already spotted Jin. She walked straight up to him and stared. I didn't think there'd be someone my age in Mammoth. Ignoring Jin's dazed expression, Ceres asked, Are you all right? It looks like you got caught in the crossfire too. She kindly advised, We need to get out of here quickly. Stand up. Just then, Heaton ran back to report. My lady, our people are over there. They're injured, but they're all alive. Ceres smiled faintly and replied, Good. Gather everyone outside. If they're still protecting Ankaro, order them to finish him off. The guard replied, Understood, my lady. She analyzed the scene and ordered, Those magic attacks were too similar. They must be the work of a single person. If you find any suspicious mages, bind them immediately. Hitten obeyed without hesitation. As you command. My lady. Observing her calm composure and striking appearance, Jin quickly realized she was the daughter of the hidden palace master. Listening to their conversation, it seemed she had come here to deal with Ankaro. His fate was sealed. I don't even need to check on him anymore. The real problem is what comes next. It'll be a massive headache if she remembers my face. I need to disguise myself as much as possible and use the chaos to slip away. Before they could even move, another guard rushed over to report. Forgive us, my lady. Ankaro was killed during the surprise attack. We failed in our duty to protect him. However, Cirrus wasn't bothered by the news at all. Really? Well, that's great news. I actually came here to relieve you of that duty anyway. You all must have suffered having to babysit that fool for so long. Deeply moved, the guard could only gasp, My lady. Cirrus then turned on her heel and walked away. Raising her sword with one hand, she spoke with a commanding and dominant voice. The hidden palace is temporarily requisitioning this tavern. I am Cirrus Endoma, daughter of Talaris, the master of the hidden palace, and captain of the hidden palace's 7 swords. Anyone who objects will be deemed an enemy of the hidden palace. Naturally, a few thugs fiercely protested her declaration. Don't make me laugh. Even if you are the daughter of the hidden palace master, this is Mummet. Does the hidden palace really think they can bypass the kings of this city to take control? You're overstepping your boundaries. Besides, there's a good chance we were attacked in the first place because of the hidden palace. Cirrus pursed her lips, her expression cold and empty. Without wasting any words on explanations, she swung her sword in a wide, clean arc. Walking toward the 2 thugs, Cirrus spoke in a booming voice. I made myself very clear. Anyone who objects becomes an enemy of the hidden palace. Kings of Mammoth, do you really think you can look down on the hidden palace just because you're playing king in this den of thieves? If this attack was indeed targeted at the hidden palace, we will make sure you are properly compensated. But what if that magician's target is actually one of you, and the hidden palace just happened to get dragged into your mess? What would you do then? The dissenters from earlier were completely silenced by her logic. As for that, Cirrus's eyes suddenly flashed with a sharp light, her voice dropping to a low, menacing whisper. I believe that's more than fair for the hidden palace to requisition this inn. Left with no choice, the others had to go along with her arrangement. Fine, do whatever you want. After all, we're in the same boat now, so we must find and kill the magician who launched that attack. Hearing this, Cirrus stopped threatening them. I agree. For now, let's find the magician among the survivors. It's not one of mine. There are no magicians among the hidden palace members here. That was hardly a surprise. It's highly likely one of you con artists crossed the mastermind while causing trouble somewhere. So stop this pointless resistance already. After speaking, she walked back to where she had been chatting with Jin. And what about you? Why are you dragging your feet? Didn't you hear me tell you to get outside? Playing the coward, he stammered in response. Well, I'm a bit scared, and my leg is injured too. I'm sorry. Cirrus pulled an ointment tin from her sleeve and teased him. You're way too cowardly for a man, but you're actually a pretty cute swordsman. Here, roll up your pants. You're pretty lucky to have survived that attack. And now, you even get to have the great Cirrus herself apply this medicine for you. So feel honored. In response to her kindness, Jin shyly asked, What can I do to repay this favor? Cirrus gave him a bright, carefree smile and replied, There's no need. How could someone like you ever repay the great Cirrus? Just think of it as a fond memory, and maybe bow toward the hidden palace once in a while. Once she finished applying the ointment, she quickly turned around and waved. Goodbye. He smiled and waved back to return the gesture. As soon as Cirrus was out of sight, Jin's face turned cold as ice. He muttered to himself, Mission accomplished. With one battle behind him, another clash was already on the horizon. A crescent of light flashed through the air, clearly carved out by a sword. A monster roared in sheer agony as it took a direct, fatal slash from a human, letting out the final whimpers of its life. Its body collapsed to the ground, followed by a triumphant cheer. It was Taimont who had taken down this orc. Now, he was joyfully stomping on it, shouting, I think we're actually going to make it back alive. Scott grinned in agreement. Yeah, let's get back together and rub it in the faces of those bastards who dared to mock us. But Mesa didn't look happy at all. She tensely warned her friends not to get careless, reminding them that there were still 7 monsters left. One of them quickly replied, I know, Mesa. She carefully analyzed the situation, saying, Orcs always move in packs. Since this one was wandering alone, taking it down was too easy. Maybe the gods are on our side. At that thought, Mesa smiled slightly, thinking that perhaps young Master Jin had received divine protection and that positive energy was spreading to everyone else. Snapping back to reality, she ordered the squad, "Keep searching. Let's move fast. Stay on high alert until the very end, and be careful." Suddenly, something rustled in a nearby bush. Murakhan had been eavesdropping on them this whole time. Strolling along casually, he muttered to himself, "So they think there are still 7 left. Once they hunt down those 7, we can finally go home." Flashback to a few days ago, right before Jin's squad received their mission. Someone had gathered the orcs together and spoke authoritatively. "Is everyone here?" Murakhan stood with his hands behind his back, his voice booming with authority. "Listen up, you orc bastards. From today on, make sure you only move alone. If you dare disobey or gather in groups of 2 or more, I'll wipe every last one of you out. Got it?" Finally, he told them that if they understood, they should get moving. Terrified, the orcs split up and scattered in all directions. Back in the forest in the present, Murakhan complained grumpily as he paced on his stubby legs. "That brat is always making me do the most annoying things." He screamed in frustration. So what if he's the 1,000-year contractor? So what? His furious shouting sent a flock of birds above, scattering in panic. Pocket dimension, open. Murakhan stood on a tree branch, observing Jin's squad below. He muttered to himself, "When we get back, I'm going to make that brat buy me some new manga." Then, he slumped down lazily. "In this body, this is the most I can do to help them finish the mission without anyone dying." Just then, a heavy footstep shook the ground like an earthquake. Murakhan instantly bolted upright, his gold eyes glowing. He spun around in shock, wondering, what is this energy? As the strange, mysterious sound grew louder, Murakhan realized it immediately. It was heading right this way. Still hiding on the tree branch, Murakhan hissed in annoyance. "Damn it, where did those guys come from? I didn't think they'd just turn back. Fortunately, they're only around 3-star level. If it were Jin, that kid would definitely sense my barrier right away." With that, Murakhan unleashed a plume of pitch-black smoke, letting it drift down over the area where Jin's squad was camping. It spread slowly, swallowing up the faint moonlight shining down. Bit by bit, it rose, completely blanketing the night sky. Bellup was the first one sharp enough to notice the change. Looking up, he muttered, "It seems darker than before. Is it about to rain?" But besides Murakhan, there was another intruder entering the area. It was a giant gravekeeper holding a trident. Its eyes glowed a deep red, filled with nothing but cold, lifeless malice. Instantly, Murakhan transformed into his dragon form and let out a furious roar. "How dare you!" His massive wings beat against the air, whipping up a violent, howling gale. With the authority of an absolute powerhouse, Murakhan spoke as if handing down a death sentence. "To dare act without my permission, it wasn't a living creature, but an ancient relic." Staring closely at the massive, menacing figure before him, he identified the giant gravekeeper. But Murakhan was deeply confused. "I'm sure we dragons wiped these things out 2,000 years ago. Besides, why are the gravekeepers of dead gods even here?" He quickly fired off a magic sphere to put an end to it. "Whatever the reason, this isn't a happy reunion. I'll finish this in a single breath." With that, the devastating magic sphere slammed directly into the giant gravekeeper. The monster stood its ground, desperately trying to block the blast with its shield. But the sheer magical force shattered the shield, webbed with cracks before exploding. The impact triggered a massive blast, sending dust and debris flying everywhere. Amidst the dust and chaos, Murakhan slowly touched down, his massive dragon claws gradually retracting. Returning to his human form, Murakhan rolled his stiff shoulders and grumbled. "Is it because I haven't used my powers in so long? My entire body is aching." Looking down at the collapsed giant gravekeeper, Murakhan casually commented, "There's no way a giant gravekeeper just randomly showed up. No matter how I look at it, the Zipfel clan has to be behind this. What the hell is going on with the world these days?" He fell into deep thought. "I'd better keep this a secret from the kid for now. If anything goes sideways, I'll be there to protect him. If he keeps growing at this rate for another 10 years, he'll actually stand a chance against the Zipfels." Meanwhile, in another location, the shape-shifting mage Bubar Gaston paced back and forth anxiously before finally opening the door to enter. He immediately reported, "Lord Bishkal, there's a major problem with my masterpiece." Bishkal Ibriano, The vice leader of the Kinzello Revolutionary Group, replied, "I've already heard." The kids were attacked by a giant gravekeeper in the middle of the night. Bubar seized the opportunity to put on a dramatic show. Exactly, who on earth would do something so horrible and destroy my masterpiece? Walking over slowly, Bishkal emphasized, "Bubar, that doesn't matter right now. The one who defeated the giant gravekeeper was a dragon and a shadow dragon at that. I went to inspect the scene myself." The news left Bubar completely stunned. "A dragon? Are you saying the dragons have caught on to our plans?" Bishkal replied, "It's not certain, but I believe they're sending us a warning. Keep a close eye on the surroundings for now. I'll send some capable people to back you up." Tension filled Bishkal's eyes, his gaze turning sharp as a blade. "I need to arrange a meeting with the Zipfel clan as soon as possible." Seeing the clan members return safely to the castle made Jed incredibly pleased, and he grinned from ear to ear. "Excellent. You all successfully completed your mission and made it back from Mamet in one piece. Those flag bearers who set you up with this mission must be utterly humiliated right now. They're definitely going to lose their minds over this." Jin spoke up, accepting the praise on behalf of the group. "Thank you, Uncle." Jed crossed his arms and addressed the subordinates. "All right, you're all dismissed." Everyone shouted in unison, "Yes, sir." Once they finally got a chance to rest, Mesa, Bellup, and Scott happily crowded around Jin. "Young master, we're so glad you're safe." Jin smiled warmly, appreciating his companion's sincerity. "Yeah, you all did an amazing job." Meanwhile, in a corner of the spacious courtyard, Kajin, Rima, and Mel had gathered, all wearing sour expressions. One of them asked, "Did you guys hear? By some crazy coincidence, on that exact day, a mage launched a terrorist attack on the very guest house where his assassination target was staying." Rima let out a jealous sigh. "Young Master Jin is just ridiculously lucky." Mel glared at Jin's group with pure envy, spitting out bitterly, "This world we live in is seriously so unfair. Not only is he a Runcandel, but he also has some insane, heaven-defying luck. Some people can try as hard as they want and still never get past being a mid-tier cadet." He turned to Kajin, his voice dripping with jealousy as he ranted. "We don't even know how strong his squad is, but young Master Jin just managed to reach 4 stars. And those newbies in his squad are only 3 stars, aren't they? Hey Kajin, are we really just going to let them walk all over us?" Glaring at Mel, Kajin hissed in reply, "And what are we supposed to do about it? Even if people look down on him for being the youngest, he's still a pure-blooded Runcandel." Though Kajin hated to admit defeat, he was realistic enough to know their place, offering his friend a cold reality check. "Male, until Lady Anne gives us direct orders, we can't do anything." In the meantime, Jin walked closer, his body clearly turned toward them. They whispered to each other, "Wait, did he hear everything? There is no way." From this far away, Jin looked down to hide his eyes. "Too bad, but I heard every single word, my dear friends." Mael and Rima bit their lips, staring at him in shock. Jin continued by asking their leader, "Kajin, is your right hand doing okay?" He kept a humble attitude, even though his eyes looked like he wanted to rip Jin apart. "I am fine, young master." The healer said reattaching it won't be hard at all, thanks to how clean the cut was. He casually replied, "I see. By the way, it seems like you guys were having a pretty interesting conversation, weren't you?" Kajin put on a submissive act and replied, "Yes, the only thing lowlifes like us can do when facing young Master Jin here is talk behind your back, so we hope you will forgive us." His face showed absolutely no emotion, but his words carried a hidden contempt. "Well, whether I overlook this or not doesn't really matter, does it, since I am not a flag bearer yet. Honestly, this shouldn't even concern you guys." He took the initiative to elaborate on Jin's words. "To be precise, wouldn't a single word from you allow you to have guys like us beaten up?" Jin innocently asked back. "Why on earth would I do that?" Kajin grinned mockingly. "Maybe because I am acting pretty insolent right now?" Jin clicked his tongue and nodded. "Well, you really are an eyesore." Seeing him suddenly stand up with a murderous aura radiating from his back, Mael quickly asked, "Hey, Kajin, what are you doing?" Kajin ignored her and only replied to Jin, "Oh, is that so?" In my eyes, seeing the young master get recognized by everyone after completing a mission purely out of luck is not pleasing at all. He still tried to resolve it peacefully, saying, "It seems there is a misunderstanding here. The reason I called you an eyesore is not because you mocked me, nor is it because you acted insolently." As Jin spoke, his hand gently touched the hilt of his sword. "Kajin, as a 5-star knight, Your skills are far superior to many other intermediate cadets. Honestly, you might even be stronger than me. The moment the sword left its scabbard, the steel flashed, and he asked a heavy question that felt like pure pressure. So why do you only stand there talking behind other people's backs? I am pretty sure I once told you that you could challenge me anytime you wanted. He asked back stubbornly and shamelessly. Is that really allowed? Jin said bluntly. Yes, draw your sword. There is no reason to go easy on me, so let's settle this. Kajin's eyes flashed as he gave him a menacing, growling glare. That sounds like you are suggesting we don't need to put any limits on using aura. He immediately answered his question. Exactly. Kajin's blade was gently pushed out of its sheath, his voice even colder than the steel. You will regret this. And with that, the battle between the two combatants officially began. Kajin welcomed his opponent with a direct downward slash. Jin quickly raised his sword horizontally to block it. He thought to himself, his attacks are indeed very powerful. Right now, Kajin looked like a raging gorilla, his dark skin tensed and his teeth bared in pure anger. Jin effortlessly dodged his opponent's strikes, still having plenty of time to think, but compared to the people I'll have to fight in the future, this is absolutely nothing. But after a moment, Jin stumbled slightly and slid backward. Seeing this, Kajin asked arrogantly, have you realized the truth yet? Young master, you are still far too weak compared to me. He continued to slash his sword straight down from above, and Jin braced himself to block it. Right at that moment, a silver light flashed from below. That small light was aiming straight for Jin's chest. Kajin had taken advantage of the opening to punch him with his armored fist. Then, an orange trail of light swept past, forming a curve in the air. Jin instinctively opened his eyes wide in shock. He had to move his body incredibly fast to dodge Kajin's wild slashes, while thinking, I can see it now. Just like the day I was hit by Haytona's iron ball, I can start to see the trajectory of Kajin's attacks. The number of sword techniques he can use to cut through space is endless, but a 5-star knight can barely utilize any of them. Especially since he is blinded by his anger toward me, I can end this in just 3 moves. To give his opponent a way out, Jin kindly said, I can read your every move, you can't win. Blinded by hatred, Kajin yelled frantically. You are still talking nonsense like that, young master. But right after that, he saw with his own eyes how easily Jin dodged all of his attacks, first a slash from the left, then a sudden swipe at his head. Then, as Kajin prepared to bring his sword down, Jin immediately ducked. He could clearly see his opponent's final attack, an aura that a 4-star knight couldn't even dream of blocking, but Jin blocked it completely, even causing the attacker to suffer a backlash from his own blow. Timing it perfectly as Kajin missed his strike, Jin swung his sword and knocked his opponent's blade backward. Kajin trembled, his eyes wide with disbelief. Eyes rolled back, completely knocked out. How did it even come to this? That last attack was definitely solid, but the final outcome was already crystal clear. Jin pointed the tip of his sword right at his face and declared, Now I know exactly how many years I need to reach the 5-star rank. Kajin hung his head in sheer embarrassment, shouting out to salvage what was left of his pride after Jin completely shattered it. You tricked me, didn't you? I had no idea you were already a 5-star. Jin sheathed his sword and bluntly replied, No, I have never played such petty games. You just don't know me well enough. I would never step into a fight unless I knew for a fact I was going to win. Once the battle was over, the Tona twins rushed over in a panic and asked, What on earth just happened? They both froze in their tracks, wearing the exact same shocked expression, utterly dumbfounded as they stared at him sitting there, gritting his teeth in deep despair. Wait, what? How is this even possible? The youngest actually defeated Kajin. Jin casually strolled past the Tona brothers, deliberately throwing a lame, mocking remark behind him. Haytona, acting like he was hard of hearing, just stared blankly, while Daytona had to admit it was true. Inside a private room, someone questioned Kajin in utter disbelief. Are you seriously telling us the youngest completely crushed you? Do you honestly expect us to believe that? He stood at rigid attention and confessed honestly, I am truly, deeply ashamed of myself. Anne pressed him further. Did you take a bribe or go easy on him just because he's a Runcandel? Kajin bravely replied. Not at all, my lady. Mew snapped back, visibly annoyed. Then what the hell was it? Are you seriously telling me a kid who is only 15 managed to reach the 5-star rank in such a ridiculously short time? He quickly summed it up. It wasn't just me, my lady. Everyone at the training ground saw it happen. That aura was definitely beyond the 5-star level. One of the young ladies let out a frustrated sigh. Forget it. Relying on someone like you was my mistake to begin with. Get out. Once Kajin left, the room fell into a heavy silence. Anne looked up slightly and asked, "Is the youngest trying to threaten us?" Miu replied, "For the youngest's next mission, we must make sure to slip some of our own people into the mix." She eagerly looked forward to the future, a future where he goes out on a mission and only returns as a corpse. Jin had returned to his room. Gilly walked in carrying a food tray and spoke up. "Young master, the Garden of Swords is absolutely buzzing right now. Everyone is astonished by your achievement." He gazed blankly out the window and asked, "Really?" Gilly narrowed her eyes and hesitated before saying, "It's because only the first patriarch, your father, and Lady Luna have ever become 5-star knights at the age of 15 in the entire history of Runcandel." Then, he thought to himself, so that makes it a 5-star in swordsmanship, a 4-star in magic, and a 5-star in shadow energy. I didn't even expect to reach 5-star in swordsmanship. I was just practicing until I mastered it as usual, and somehow I am already a 5-star. With a thoughtful look on his face, Jin pondered, "It seems when one of my 3 powers, specifically shadow energy, magic, or aura, gets stronger, the others are affected too. Back when I overloaded my shadow energy, I also opened a flow of aura and mana. Since I am the only one who possesses all 3 powers, there is no records on this, but they are definitely interconnected." Just then, something caught his attention, making him turn around. While deep in thought, Jin happened to glance over and noticed a few blue roses. "Did you put these flowers here?" Hearing this, Gilly replied honestly, "Yes. Since the vase was empty when you left, I decided to put some in. Should I throw them away?" He quickly reassured her, "No, there is no magic or curse on them, so they are perfectly fine." Gilly smiled with relief. "I understand, young master," Jin continued. "In any case, now that the news of me becoming a 5-star knight at 15 has gotten out, my older brothers are going to get restless." His eyes suddenly turned cold. "Even my brother Joshua, the prime candidate to become the next patriarch. Joshua. Ever since Luna gave up her status as the first flag bearer, the second flag bearer of Runcandel became the frontrunner for the succession. With the backing of his mother, Rosa, he has firmly secured his position for now." While Jin was being completely serious, Murakhan was just lying on the table, casually munching on snacks and enjoying the drama. Jin turned to stare blankly ahead and said, "Even though hiding my skills wouldn't be a bad idea, I decided that exposing my achievements will actually be more beneficial. Since the news of me being a 5-star is out, word of my achievement will spread beyond just Runcandel. It is bound to make the headlines all over the world." Murakhan licked his paws, rolled his eyes, and teased, "Oh my, look at our boy boasting about himself. I am certain that if you become the center of attention, your brothers will start behaving themselves." Jin didn't deny it and fully agreed, "Exactly, and more importantly, father will personally return to the Garden of Swords." Gilly and Murakhan couldn't help but look utterly shocked. Father wants a different heir instead of Joshua. Aside from Lady Luna, father has never been satisfied with any of my older siblings, but Lady Luna, the only one who actually interested him, has 0 interest in the throne. So, father decided she wasn't fit to lead the clan. After that, Joshua's position as the next patriarch was firmly established. Defus, Luntia, and Mary became reserve flag bearers. This line of succession was extremely stable, but everything changed the moment I showed up. Father doesn't care about age and gives everyone a fair shot, so he will definitely give me an order. Just like when I was still in the cadet class, his order will definitely consist of 2 things. First, a trial. Can I overcome the age gap between me and my older siblings, the other candidates for succession? Second, protection. Father doesn't want me dying at the hands of my siblings before I even take the test, simply because I'm a special case. Suddenly, Gilly gave him a serious look and warned him, "If your story gets published in the newspapers, you'll be flooded with visitation requests from countless families and organizations all over the world." Hearing this, Jin immediately agreed. "You're right. To deal with all of them at once, nothing beats hosting a grand banquet." Sunlight streamed through the window, warming his body as he narrowed his eyes and ordered in a low voice, "When father arrives, we'll host a banquet. Gilly, go make the preparations." Then, Jin pointed at Murakhan beside him. "And you must keep a very close eye on Murakhan. We're completely doomed if he secretly transforms into a human and sneaks into the banquet. You get what I mean, right?" Hearing this, Murakhan's eyes widened in disbelief. "Huh?" Bristling with anger, He yelled, "Hey, do you think I'm some kind of toddler?" But Gilly didn't even give him a chance to argue, quickly carrying out the order. "I will do as you wish, young master." Left with no choice, he could only grumble helplessly to himself about strawberry pies. A few days later, she smiled as she arranged some flowers and announced, "It seems the butlers have been incredibly busy responding to official letters lately, young master." When I asked Pedro, he mentioned that even the Vermont imperial family sent an official letter. Hearing this, Jin looked up from his book and spoke. "The imperial family? Impressive. They must be dying of curiosity." Gilly looked at his back and continued to report. "Also, the patriarch has sent his visitation schedule through Khan. He plans to arrive in 1 month. The visitation dates for the other clans will be scheduled accordingly." However, the other young masters and ladies have been surprisingly quiet. Calmly flipping through the pages, Jin finally closed the book, closed his eyes, and replied, "If they try to put me in my place while the spotlight is on me, it would be no different from openly boasting that they're either afraid of me or hate me, all just for the sake of reputation." Before he could even finish his thought, Pedro suddenly burst through the door, shouting, "Young master." Drenched in a cold sweat, he stammered in fear, "You've been assigned a mission, but the destination is the Kholin ruins." At that very moment, an angry shout echoed from another location. "How can you people, who dare call yourselves knights, handle things like this?" The person bellowed, conjuring a powerful gust of wind. Unable to contain her explosive rage, Rosa slammed the table and roared, "How dare they send the youngest to Zipfel's territory?" She didn't stop there, continuing to curse those absolute bastards. Just then, the door to the room creaked open. Seeing the person walk in, Rosa's voice softened. "Ah, you're here." Jin softly replied, "Yes, mother." Jin Runcandel, the third knight of Runcandel, looked utterly exhausted, not even bothering to look up at her younger brother. His other 2 older brothers stared in his direction at the same time. From left to right, they were Ran, the 5th knight of Runcandel, and Vigo, the 6th knight of Runcandel. She asked solemnly, "Have you heard that your next mission is at the Kholin ruins?" Jin slid his hands into his pockets and answered in an incredibly casual tone, "Yes, I have." Suddenly, Rosa stepped forward and announced in a calm voice, "That mission has been cancelled. There is no way you're going to Kholin." Hearing this, Anne and Mew gasped in shock and frantically cried out, "Mother!" She instantly whipped around to glare at them, snapping, "Shut your mouths. You useless fools can only think of ways to get your youngest brother killed." Angered, Mew shot back, "Mother, is it really that strange for us to try and kill him?" Standing beside her, Anne glared back with blazing eyes. "Exactly. Honestly, I don't get why you're trying so hard to protect him." Shocked by the utter malice of her 2 daughters, she gasped, "What did you say?" But as the mother who gave birth to them, Rosa didn't hesitate to threaten, "If you 2 keep spouting this insane nonsense." Before she could finish, Anne impatiently cut her off. "Both father and mother secretly encourage us siblings to fight one another. Isn't that because our family thrives on competition? I'm sure you know that every single one of us here grew up competing with each other since childhood." Mayu quickly chimed in, "She's right, mother. I was sent on extremely dangerous missions countless times when I was only an intermediate." Rosa listened in silence, seemingly deep in thought. Sitting back down, Rosa spoke calmly, "Yes, you are right. Competition is indeed necessary. It doesn't matter what methods are used or what the underlying motives are. But tell me, did any of you become a 5-star knight at just 15 years old?" The 2 of them froze, staring at their mother in utter shock. Rosa simply explained, "Your youngest brother is on a completely different level compared to you all." Meanwhile, Jin just stood there, silently listening with his head slightly bowed. Glaring at the 2 who had opposed her decision, she added, "If you had achieved what he has at his age, I would have protected you just the same." By now, Luntia was thoroughly bored, raising a hand to cover her yawn. Rosa continued to harshly lecture her 2 rebellious and deeply envious daughters. "Look at you. In other words, you are not even worthy of my protection. Seeing how you act now, even as flag bearers, I do not regret my choice one bit." She suddenly raised her voice. "And Luntia, Ran, and Vigo, as fellow flag bearers, you 3 will also be held responsible for the chaos caused by those 2, Rosa demanded, addressing each of them. "Luntia, you will reflect on your actions. As for Ran and Vigo, both of you will return one of the high-grade family swords you possess." Ran could not believe his ears, stammering in disbelief. "Mother, what do you mean by returning a sword?" She snaps impatiently. If I were to handle this my way, I would have confiscated all of your high-grade swords, so you had better be grateful I am only taking one. The two of them could not hide their fury at being dragged into this. At the same time, Rosa glares at Jin and thinks, what is he going to do now? She wonders what her youngest will do now that she has dragged his innocent siblings into this. Will he pretend to care and ask her to spare them, or will he smugly accept this favoritism and let it get to his head? She coldly picks up the document, eager to see his move. She wants to see how he handles this. Suddenly, Jin calls out to his mother. Rosa narrows her eyes in anticipation, responding, "Speak, my son." He replies cheerfully, "I actually quite like the mission my sisters assigned me." Hearing this, she immediately demands, "Do you have any idea what kind of place the Colon ruins are?" Jin does not look worried at all, calmly replying, "Yes. It is a territory that the Runcandels tried to conquer in the past, but failed." Hearing his words, Anne cannot help but grin in excitement, while Mayu just stares in shock. And then Jin smirks. "I know it is a dangerous place, but I have no intention of backing down from this fight." Jin stands tall in front of everyone. Keeping a completely resolute tone, he continues, "I know the risks, but I do not think there is any injustice here. On the contrary, it feels like my sisters are acknowledging my abilities." Mayu looks at him, completely stunned. "What?" Jin raises his voice. "Is not that exactly why they chose me for this mission?" Hearing his response, Rosa praises him. "How brave." Or, "Are you doubting your own mother?" Maintaining his unwavering composure, he replies, "Of course not. If our missions were suddenly rearranged, it would make our vassals think the clan's standards and authority are slipping." Her face turns dead serious, a terrifying hostility flashing in her eyes. "We do not have subordinates foolish enough to doubt this clan over such a trivial matter. Your sisters simply wanted to set you up. Since they are not allowed to fight you directly, they use their authority to cause trouble." Jin nods in agreement. "And that is exactly what I wanted, Mother." Before Rosa can even respond, he quickly adds, "If I fought them right now, I would definitely lose, but I can fight back by successfully completing this mission." Jin smiles confidently. "This is a battle where I have a real shot at an absolute victory." Growing slightly irritated, she stands up abruptly. "One single slip-up at the Colon ruins could cost you your life. Are you really that confident?" He answers, without hesitation, "Yes, and I have one small request. If I return from this mission successfully, please give me the swords my brothers returned." Everyone in the room gasps in shock at his words. Ignoring the stunned expressions of Rosa and the others, Jin calmly explains his request. "I believe that is the bare minimum I should receive as a reward, especially since you mentioned how dangerous this mission is, Mother." Frustrated, Rand scratches his head and asks his younger brother, "Why the hell do you want the swords we returned? If you need a sword that badly, I will just give you one of mine, so just give up on this mission," he snaps, growing increasingly angry. "You need to stay alive, at least until Father gets back." But Jin immediately fires back, pointing out how absurd that sounds. With cold, sharp eyes, Jin retorts, "If you had such a problem with this, should not you have stopped Anne and Mew in the first place?" Rosa's voice suddenly booms, cutting off their bickering. "Enough. If you actually complete the mission and return in one piece, I will grant you your brother's swords. Now, all of you are dismissed." Rand shouts in frustration, "Mother." But in contrast to his anger, she remains completely calm, thinking to herself. She thinks about how she trampled on the pride of her other children out of fear that Jin would become like Luna. But it seems her worries were entirely in vain. When Chiron returns, he will be incredibly proud of Jin's growth. Jin slowly reaches out and opens the door. Standing not far away, Anne quickly crosses her arms and sneers. "What are you thinking? Do you honestly believe luck will always be on your side?" Jin's hand freezes on the doorknob. "I do not know. You guys might not realize this, but I am actually incredibly unlucky." His nonchalance only fuels her rage. "I have had enough of your arrogant attitude. This is not a solo mission, so do not expect to be left alone for a single second on your journey south." Jin replies coldly, "Thanks for your concern," before casting a bloodthirsty glare at the crowd behind him. Radiating pure bloodlust, he muttered, "See you guys later." Cut to another scene, and he was stepping forward with a bright smile to introduce himself. "Allow us to introduce ourselves, young Master Jin. My name is Mail. I will be accompanying you on this mission." The man standing next to him quickly chimed in, "I am Rima." He spoke up again. "It is an absolute honor to work with you. Young Master, I want to sincerely apologize for my behavior earlier. Rima immediately chimed in, promising they wouldn't let him down. Kajin then placed his hand over his heart and swore, "Neither will I." After listening to their introductions, Jin turned to leave, saying, "All right, let us just consider everything water under the bridge and focus on completing this mission together." All three of them replied in unison, "Thank you, young master, thank you." Jin coldly shot them a terrifying glare, as dark thoughts began to brew in his mind. Honor, my foot. All three of them were Anne and Mayu's lackeys, so they would definitely stab him in the back the moment things got dangerous. Stepping closer, Mail began to brief them on the mission, saying, "Let me go over the details of our mission once more. Our mission is to steal the totems. The location is the Kalin Ruins, and our targets are 4 specific totems. The Kalin Ruins were once home to thousands of indigenous people living in various tribes. Currently, that territory is under the control of the Zipfel clan, under the Pylon Kingdom. Kalin was discovered several hundred years ago by members of the Zipfel clan. After discovering the ruins, they slaughtered and enslaved the majority of the indigenous population." Jin stared intently at the written descriptions. Of course, the Zipfel clan currently claimed they respected the Kalin natives, but that was merely a facade to save face. Images of people fighting fiercely flashed through his mind. Even though they were outwardly respected, they were actually treated as mere slaves, with absolutely no policies to improve their living conditions. Because to the rest of humanity, the lives and rights of the Kolon people meant absolutely nothing. As he read up to this point, a flood of thoughts rushed through Jin's mind. The only reason Zipfel spared the Kalin people was to preserve the area's natural environment and put on a show of remorse for their past atrocities. The Zipfel clan always aimed to establish seemingly fair laws, seeking voluntary obedience from those they ruled over. A few sudden noises caught Jin's attention. But in the past, they had gone way too far with Kalin. The reason they were so obsessed with the Kalin ruins that they would even sacrifice their own reputation was a relic mirror hidden by the natives. Jin suddenly recalled that image. The existence of that mirror was still classified information known only to the Zipfel clan, but the truth was exposed before he regressed, thanks to a brave journalist. Every image in the report pointed to a single thing. The headline written by that journalist stated that Zipfel's actions were aimed at locating a specific relic, and the name of the relic, revealed through the accusations of the natives, was the Fountain of Mana. Just by looking at it, anyone could increase their mana level to 7-star. By utilizing that relic, Zipfel had mass-produced countless mages. Jin remained lost in thought, while Mail and Rima were secretly signaling each other. The Zipfel clan wouldn't start mass-producing mages for another 10 years, which meant they hadn't laid their hands on the Fountain of Mana yet. Gripping his sword tightly, he resolved, "I won't let that thing fall into Zipfel's hands again." Just then, Mail's warning voice rang out. "Young master, the magicians are coming back," he signaled the others, pointing out that the location of those two was the rallying point for the Zipfel magicians. "And the totems we need are stored in warehouse number 3, making them an easy target for an ambush. But there will definitely be defensive spells in place." Kajin spoke up to reassure him. "Do not worry, young master. No matter what happens, we will protect you, even if we have to lay down our lives." Jin glanced at them and said, "Thank you for the encouragement." He then stuffed a packet of food into the man's cloak pocket. "To make sure we get back safely, we need to conserve our energy." He then instructed the 3 of them, "Get some rest. We will strike in 1 hour." Kajin took the packet of food and replied, "Understood." He then distributed it to the others to recharge, saying, "Everyone, take one." They replied, "Thank you." Mail, Rima, and Kajin all took a bite. Seeing that they had been eating for a moment, Jin said, "Now, make sure you cover your faces well. I am going to act alone. Enjoy your sleep." Kajin felt both confused and dizzy, about to collapse to the ground. What do you mean, young master?" Writhing in pain, he realized, "What is this? Poison." Once they had all collapsed, Jin finally spoke. "Don't worry, it's just sleeping pills. You won't die. Did you really think you could make it that obvious that you came here to kill me?" He glanced down at them and got ready to leave. "I would have suspected you a lot less if you guys had just acted like the usual bastards you are." Jin pulled his hood tight. "I guess it's just a dog's instinct to follow its master's orders, right?" With those words, his faint silhouette continued walking deeper into the desolate wilderness. Meanwhile, 2 knights guarding the gate were chatting and laughing, and that's exactly why. One of them said excitedly, "Grabbing a bottle, I snatched the wine." Out of nowhere, a figure in a black cloak lunged toward them, catching both guards completely off guard. One of them instantly grabbed his weapon and barked, "Who are you?" Jin's eyes locked onto him as he effortlessly dodged the knight's sudden strike. With just a single strike, Jin shut him down, making the knight cry out in agony. Within seconds, both guards were left completely face down on the ground. Jin crouched down to scan the area. Only two. It seemed there were no other guards outside. His eyes then drifted toward the door. Walking over, Jin picked up the lock. It was incredibly simple, without a single alarm spell warding it. Thoughts raced through his head. Well, they even let random merchants guard warehouse number 3 from time to time. It seemed the Zipfel clan didn't care about this place at all. Jin calmly used his power to unlock the door, eager to see what was inside. But the very first thing that caught his eye was a blood magic detection circle. Jin crouched silently in front of the blood magic circle, analyzing it. Most people knew it as a security spell, designed to verify if someone carried the clan's bloodline, specifically if they were pure-blooded. But in reality, its true purpose was to distinguish normal humans from magical beasts, and to detect if the person was carrying any plagues. His eyes drifted back to the unconscious guards, which meant as long as it was normal human blood, it would work. It didn't matter whose. Drawing his sword, Jin harvested some of the guard's blood. He carefully gathered the guard's blood. Every move was meticulously calculated. There was no way he would use his own blood. That would only leave behind damning evidence. Stepping inside, Jin let the drops of blood fall onto the blood magic circle. The moment the blood made contact, the circle glowed a deep crimson red. His first step was a success. The first barrier was surprisingly simple, he thought. Now, where is that artifact? Just as he began to look around, something suddenly emerged from the blood magic circle. Jin's eyes widened in shock. I used the blood of an unconscious guard, so it should have been normal human blood. Yet, the detection circle was still triggered. Bizarre creatures flashed in his vision, which meant either that guard was carrying some disease, or they lunged toward him with terrifying speed. He wasn't even human. Jin gritted his teeth, tightening his grip on his weapon as he braced for impact. Damn it, what are these things? Taking the initiative, he unleashed his technique, Windfall. But the monsters suddenly sprouted razor-sharp claws. He had wanted to use as little mana as possible, knowing any nearby mages would instantly sense it. But things had just taken a turn for the worse. Jin knitted his brows in frustration. Landing lightly on his feet, he braced himself for the onslaught. It seemed there was no avoiding this fight. In the clash that followed, Jin used his insane speed to effortlessly dodge every single strike. A razor-sharp blade instantly materialized in his hand as the monster spread its